Chun Shi Tao brought good news. The origin returning realm senior who Chun Fanlei knew had returned from his mission, and when Chun Fanlei went to ask him this morning about using the space array, the other party had readily agreed. Now that Black Crow City's space array was open to them, Yang Kai could travel to Heavenly Fate City at any time. Moreover, all the expenses accrued by Yang Kai and his group to use the space array were paid for by Chun Fanlei. Yang Kai was not surprised by this. After all, the Chun family brother and sister both had a deep sense of gratitude towards him, so a few trivial Saint crystals were nothing to them. Yang Kai kindly accepted their generosity before he, Yang Yan, and Chen Yu followed Chun Shi Tao to the Black Crow City space array. The space array of any city had many layers of protection around it and was overseen by numerous experts. Black Crow City was naturally no exception. Upon entering the hall where the space array was located, Yang Kai immediately noticed that there were at least 4 origin returning realm masters concealing themselves nearby. Beside the space array, a middle-aged man dressed in scholarly robes stood waiting, who, upon seeing Chun Fanlei, smiled and nodded lightly. Apparently, the relationship between these two was quite good. Yang Kai immediately understood that this middle-aged scholar was the senior Chun Shi Tao had mentioned. Leading Yang Kai and his group over, Chun Fanlei greeted the middle-aged man before hurriedly saying with a smile, "Brother Yang, it seems everything has been prepared. Thank you for your hard work, Brother Chun." Yang Kai cupped his fists politely before walking over to the space array with him. Chun Fanlei pointed to the middle-aged man and introduced him. "This is Senior Jiang Wenjie. Being able to use the space array so easily this time is all thanks to Senior Jiang's assistance." "Many thanks, Senior Jiang." Yang Kai gently nodded to the middle-aged man. The other party looked Yang Kai up and down and smiled slightly. Sure enough, a heroic young man. Nephew Yang looks quite young, but like Nephew Chun, is already a second-order Saint King. It seems a promising future awaits you. Jiang Wenjie only said this out of consideration for Chun Fanlei's face. Yang Kai didn't have a deep relationship with this senior, but receiving such praise, he still acted humble. Immediately, Jiang Wenjie ordered people to open the space array, and after Yang Kai said goodbye to the Chun sister and brother, he led Yang Yan and Chen Yu onto the platform. In the next moment, the space array began to glow and space force fluctuations appeared. Just as the figures of Yang Kai's group of 3 began to blur though, Jiang Wenjie suddenly looked at Yang Kai and mouthed something silently. A ray of light flashed across Yang Kai's eyes, but it was too late for him to ask anything as a slight dizziness overcame him. On a space array platform hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from Black Crow City, Yang Kai and his group appeared. Yang Kai had cultivated Space Force, so this long-distance teleportation did not affect him greatly. He could even use this transmission to gain some small insight into the Tao of space. However, neither Yang Yan nor Chen Yu could ignore the side effects of such a teleportation and felt quite dizzy after emerging from the void. After circulating their Saint Qi a bit though, this fit of discomfort eased. Sweeping her eyes over their surroundings, Yang Yan's expression quickly became puzzled while Chen Yu called out in surprise. "Is this Heavenly Fate City? Why is there no one here?" "This isn't Heavenly Fate City," Yang Kai said in a solemn tone, finally understanding what Jiang Wenjie's last-minute warning to be careful meant. Looking around, although they were indeed in a grand hall with a space array platform beneath their feet, everything seemed quite run down and clearly did not match with the Heavenly Fate City Hall in their memory. This place was clearly a deserted ruin. "Correct. This is not Heavenly Fate City," an eerie voice suddenly called out from nearby. Chen Yu and Yang Yan were startled and simultaneously turned their heads in the direction the voice came from. There, a familiar person, wearing a look of self-satisfaction upon his face, was strolling over towards their group. However, when this man's eyes landed on Yang Kai, a look of deep hatred and anger replaced his smug expression. Seeing this man's face, Yang Kai understood everything and grinning towards him said, "Brother Wang, we meet again. The world is far too small." Wang Yuhan laughed loudly. "I've been waiting for you. This is the place I specifically chose for your grave. I hope Brother Yang is satisfied." "And, not bad at all. This place is a good spot to make a grave. But whether it will be mine or yours is still uncertain. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as he coldly snorted and shouted, "Manager Wang, since you've come as well, stop hiding and come out." As he spoke, Yang Kai turned to look at a certain spot in these ruins. An old man with a dark expression on his face slowly appeared from behind the crumbled walls, followed closely by several other Saint King realm cultivators, all of them glaring at Yang Kai menacingly while occasionally shooting obscene looks towards Chen Yu. Seeing this situation, Chen Yu's face went pale. How could she not understand that these people had been waiting here in ambush for them? Although she did not know much about the specific course of events, she vaguely guessed that these people had somehow meddled with the space array they just used. Young kids really know how to boast, completely ignorant of how high the heavens are. The old man surnamed Wang coldly snorted. Wang Yuhan laughed wildly as he glared fiercely. "Yang Kai, I bet you didn't think things would end up like this, but it's far too late to regret now." "Regret? You think far too highly of yourself." Yang Kai shot him a look of indifference. Not seeing any of the fear he had expected, Wang Yuhan could not help feeling surprised. He thought for sure Yang Kai would break down in a panic, maybe even get down on his knees and beg for mercy. That way he could torture and humiliate him to vent his anger. How could Wang Yuhan have anticipated that even in this situation, it would not cause the slightest bit of change in Yang Kai's demeanor? Although Yang Kai knew that Wang Yuhan would not be willing to simply let these matters drop, he hadn't expected to be redirected to this abandoned city via the Black Crow City Space Array. Yang Kai had thought that with his group of 3 teleporting directly from Black Crow City to Heavenly Fate City, even if Wang Yuhan wanted to retaliate against him, he wouldn't have any opportunity to do so, not that Yang Kai was afraid of him in the first place. Yang Kai had not expected that his group would be sent here, nor did he expect that this old man surnamed Wang's status was great enough that he could get the authorities of Black Crow City to cooperate with him. Jiang Wenjie must have known something like this would happen, so he had given Yang Kai a warning at the last moment as a way of giving face to Chen Fanlei. As for whether Yang Kai and his group lived or died, he probably did not care. After all, there was no friendship between them. Wasting time here will just cause more problems later. "Go!" Manager Wang saw Yang Kai acting so calmly and inexplicably felt a hint of discomfort in his heart, decisively waving his hand as he shouted, "This little brat is a bit unusual. I'll deal with him personally. You lot take care of the 2 women behind him. That Yuer still has her innocence and has cultivated Joyous Union Pavilion's special dual cultivation technique. She will be of great benefit to several of you. As for the other girl, I want her." Wang Yuhan smiled coldly. "Good, young Master Wang will have her." The several Saint Kings behind Manager Wang nodded in agreement before turning their wicked gazes towards Chen Yu, causing her to feel both fearful and angry. "Since you all court death, I'll fulfill your wishes." Yang Kai shouted as he pushed his Saint Chi, condensing a layer of black flame around his body, turning himself into a human fireball as a strange aura pulsed from him. Immediately after, Yang Kai formed a black sword in his hand and, with a single swing, sent out a powerful sword wave towards the enemy. Daring to show off with mere paltry tricks, the old man surnamed Wang saw Yang Kai dared to take the initiative and flew into a rage, shouting angrily as an invisible power suddenly spread out from his body. Under the influence of this force, the sword wave which Yang Kai shot off immediately slowed down, as if it had sunk into a quagmire. Even some scraping sounds could be heard as it tried to advance through this thickened space. Although Manager Wang was just a first-order origin returning realm cultivator, he had been immersed in this cultivation realm for many years and had piled up some understanding of the application of Sure. He wanted to use this opportunity to swiftly suppress Yang Kai's arrogance. Seeing this, Wang Yuhan and the several other Saint Kings looked overjoyed and were just about to act when suddenly, the black sword wave distorted and transformed into a number of lifelike serpents. These snakes immediately regained their full speed and rushed out towards these Saint Kings. "Yuan control mastery." The old man surnamed Wang's eyes bulged as he shouted in surprise, immediately increasing the power he was putting into his Sure by 30%. At the same time, Wang Yuhan and the others quickly assumed a defensive stance. Hong hong hong. With a series of explosions, the blocked black snakes burst apart and demonic flames splashed about. Although these flames were unable to cause any harm, They still left all of the enemy Saint Kings in quite a distressed state, many of them wearing terrified looks on their faces now. Manager Wang had also gone pale. Taking his status into consideration, and having received a request from Wang Yuhan, Manager Wang had not immediately taken action to kill Yang Kai, and was only planning on constraining him slightly, allowing his grandnephew to obtain his revenge personally. How could Manager Wang have anticipated that this brief moment of carelessness had resulted in his grandnephew suffering such a big loss? Yuan control mastery was an extremely profound ability, not something Saint King realm cultivators were supposed to be able to use at all. Only when one reached the origin realm and gained comprehension of Shi would they be able to display Yuan control mastery. But today, Manager Wang had witnessed a mere second-order Saint King break this convention. How could he not be shocked? On top of that, the black flames this little brat used were quite unusual. When Manager Wang used his divine sense to investigate these black flames, he felt an aura from them that frightened him greatly and realized that being contaminated with them would lead to very bad consequences. He did not dare underestimate Yang Kai again and quickly strengthened his Shi, suppressing Yang Kai and his group. Yang Yan and Xianxia, who were standing behind Yang Kai, both let out a gasp as they felt invisible shackles lock them in place, making it impossible for them to move or even circulate their Saint Qi. Facing the full might of an origin realm master, Yang Kai was naturally affected and his body froze in place. At the same time, a barrage of attacks was rapidly approaching as Wang Yuhan and the other Saint Kings had taken advantage of this opening to act. These martial skills and artifact attacks each contained frightening power and seemed intent on killing Yang Kai on the spot. As long as Yang Kai died, the two women behind him would pose no threat. With this wave of attacks closing in, Yang Kai's thoughts made the purple shield appear in his hand. The shield's two attributes burst out and, in a flash, a small sandstorm formed around Yang Kai's trio, completely shielding their bodies. A loud noise rang out as the wave of attacks impacted the sandstorm, but none of them were able to penetrate its defenses, and they were all quickly swallowed up and disappeared. Seeing this, Wang Yuhan's expression went cold. In Grand Burial Valley, he had seen Yang Kai use this origin-grade high-rank shield artifact and realized how extraordinary it was, but now that he had personally attacked it, he further understood how outstanding its defensive capabilities were. With such a defensive artifact, as long as the cultivator wielding it didn't run out of Saint Qi, it would be impossible for the few Saint Kings here to break through its defenses. It could be said that wrapped in this sandstorm, Yang Kai and his companions were invincible. Excellent! The old man surnamed Wang's eyes flashed as a look of greed filled his face, excitedly declaring, "This old master wants that artifact." As he spoke, he condensed a huge palm from his Saint Qi and stretched out his hand to grab towards the spot where Yang Kai stood, its 5 fingers appearing as imposing as mountains, like it could grasp the entire world. At the same time, an almost imperceptible golden light suddenly flew out from the sandstorm and quickly transformed into several golden threads that began cutting through the air. The huge Saint Qi palm condensed by Manager Wang lasted less than a breath before it was chopped to pieces by these golden threads, disappearing along with them in the next instant. Before Wang Yuhan and the Saint Kings beside him could react though, these golden threads reappeared in front of them and wove together to form a massive net that threatened to engulf them. "Be careful," the old man surnamed Wang hurriedly warned as he concentrated his Shi towards these golden threads. But to his horror, these golden threads seemed completely unaffected by his Shi and instead began cutting it apart before it could completely condense. "Impossible!" Manager Wang's expression changed dramatically, suddenly seeming to remember something in the next moment and called out in horror, "Demon Blood Thread! This is the Demon Blood Thread secret technique of Demon Blood Temple. You're from Demon Blood Temple." He finally remembered the origin of this golden thread, but according to what he knew, the Demon Blood Thread was not golden. Instead, it should have been blood red. The Demon Blood Thread secret technique was famous across all Shadowed Star, as it was one of the few techniques that could cut through Shi. "Whether I'm from Demon Blood Temple or not doesn't matter," Yang Kai's figure hidden in the sandstorm called out indifferently. Flicking his finger, which was connected to his golden thread, he swiftly captured the several enemy Saint King realm cultivators together with Wang Yuhan. At the same time, Yang Kai sent out a faint signal with his divine sense, seemingly issuing a vague command. Wang Yuhan and the others were all at least second-order Saint Kings, and their strengths were certainly not weak. But seeing the look of panic on Manager Wang's face, they knew that this golden thread was extremely dangerous, so each of them immediately put all their strength into defending themselves, with two of them even using secret techniques in order to avoid getting caught. But to their shock, before they could fully act, a sudden and sharp pain radiated from their knowledge seas, disrupting their concentration and movements for a moment, and causing them to fail in fully condensing their Saint Chi or activating their artifacts. The result was them only being able to watch as the golden thread net enveloped them. A loud slicing sound rang out as the golden threads flickered back and forth before they were swiftly retrieved by Yang Kai. However, the several Saint King realm cultivators, Wang Yuhan included, stood motionless, their eyes filled with terror, as if they had just witnessed something impossible. Yuhan, the old man surnamed Wang, cried out in alarm. Seventh Grandfa? Wang Yuhan opened his mouth to respond, a look of desperation on his face, but before he could finish his sentence, his body was suddenly torn apart and turned into a pile of minced meat and fresh blood. The other Saint Kings shared the same fate as Wang Yuhan, all of them shattering like broken mirrors, their wounds all extremely clean and smooth, as if they had been cut by an incredibly sharp weapon. With just one blow, every Saint King realm cultivator here had fallen. The scene was terrifying, and a rich bloody smell quickly filled the air. The old man surnamed Wang stood in place, staring at the spot where Wang Yuhan had been killed, his eyes flashing with rage as he saw the neatly severed limbs and shredded flesh. He simply could not accept this scene. The opponent was just a second-order Saint King, so how was he able to kill so many cultivations at or above his realm in an instant? This made Manager Wang wonder if he was seeing some kind of illusion, as he simply couldn't believe his eyes. After staring for a while at this though, he grit his teeth and turned his gaze towards Yang Kai. Boy, you dare kill my grandnephew? Speak. What kind of dirty trick did you use? Dirty trick? Yang Kai sneered as he waved his hand to disperse the sandstorm shielding him, revealing himself again. Shooting a disdainful glance over at the old man, he said lightly, When you die, you'll understand. Ignorant child. You think you can kill this old master? The old man surnamed Wang roared angrily, his Saint Chi bursting out as a thick murderous intent condensed around him. Obviously, Wang Yuhan's death had thoroughly enraged him. As soon as he spoke these words, a yellow bell appeared in Manager Wang's hand. This yellow bell was small enough to fit in one's palm and looked quite unremarkable. But when Yang Kai saw it, his eyes shrank, and he didn't dare underestimate it. The other party was a genuine first-order Origin Realm Master, but in order to deal with him, a second-order Saint King, he had actually summoned such a powerful artifact. Although part of the reason for Manager Wang doing this was rage, it was also clear that he realized he had to go all out. Just as Yang Kai raised his guard against the strange yellow bell, Manager Wang flicked his wrist and the bell rang, its sound penetrating directly into Yang Kai's ears. Yang Kai felt his heart beat violently and the speed of the blood flowing through his veins rapidly sped up. This old master has never used the soul-burying bell against a Saint King before, so you should feel honored to die by it. Manager Wang grit his teeth and shook his hand gently, continuing to ring the yellow bell. Every time the bell's sound rang in Yang Kai's ear, his heartbeat accelerated. This ringing was quite strange and irregular, and after the second ring Yang Kai could already feel a sharp pain in his chest, as if his heart was about to burst. Yang Kai's complexion changed as he immediately realized that no Origin returning Realm Master should be underestimated. This old man surnamed Wang was not young, and although age did not have much relation to cultivation, over a long life one would naturally gain more and better methods of killing their opponents. Urging his Saint Chi, Yang Kai forcibly suppressed the pain in his heart, while simultaneously summoning his 100 Mountains picture. In the next instant, sending a phantom peak smashing towards Manager Wang's head. A rumbling sound rang out, but the old man surnamed Wang completely disregarded this phantom peak, not even trying to dodge it as it approached. Opening his mouth, Manager Wang spat out a black flag that quickly flew up and expanded to over a dozen meters in length and formed a cover above his head. When the illusionary mountain smashed down, a multitude of eerie shadow-like figures rushed out of the black flag and intercepted it, preventing the mountain from reaching its target. Boy, use whatever means you have at your disposal. Today, this old master will let you die convinced. The old man surnamed Wang clamored wildly as he glared hatefully towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai sneered repeatedly. Old dog, haven't you made a mistake? It's not just me fighting you. You want to count on those two little girls. Manager Wang glanced over at Xianyu and Yang Yan disdainfully, but before he could finish speaking, his face changed dramatically as he saw Yang Yan actually take out an exquisite-looking miniature pagoda and toss it up into the sky, allowing it to gently float midair. This pagoda had 7 levels to it, and each one exuded a different color. Each of the 7 layers of the pagoda began rotating as it floated, each one revolving at a different speed, creating a strange resonant melody that resounded through the air. This melody was extremely beautiful and sounded as if many different instruments were playing together, creating a harmonious ensemble. This mixed rhythm spread out a mysterious force that dispelled the pain in Yang Kai's chest and even covered the dissonant sound of the soul-burying bell. A sound artifact. Manager Wang stared at this scene in disbelief, his eyes twitching unconsciously. His shur had been broken by Yang Kai's golden blood thread, and the power of his soul-burying bell had been neutralized by this 7-layered pagoda, making Manager Wang suddenly feel as if his enemy had been specially put together to restrain him, causing his anger to erupt as well as a tinge of worry to sprout in his heart. Yang Kai quickly charged, the demonic flame sword in his hands cleaving down as he laughed carefreely. Old dog, just because Wang Yuhan thought of me as his love rival, you actually want to put me to death. Your care as an elder is truly awe-inspiring. Since you have come to threaten me, don't dream of leaving. Too arrogant. The old man surnamed Wang did not put this sword strike in his eyes at all, pushing his Saint Chi as he thrust his palm out to intercept it. In the next moment, though, Manager Wang suddenly felt a sharp pain in his knowledge sea, as if something was tearing at it, causing his face to pale and a sense of panic to spread through his heart. But before he could investigate the situation inside his knowledge sea, another blade-like attack sliced towards his head, and he was forced to once again stretch out his palm to intercept it. The accident in his knowledge sea drew so much of his attention that he did not bother investigating this incoming attack. But when Manager Wang's hand contacted this black blade, he realized it was nothing like the previous sword wave. Feeling a deep sense of crisis, the old man surnamed Wang tried to pull his hand back, but was a moment too late. The black blade-like attack was like the sharpest of weapons and sliced through the palm of his hand as easily as a hot knife through butter, proceeding without any hindrance all the way to his shoulder. Half of his arm vanished, as if it had been swallowed into the abdomen of some invisible beast, never to be seen again. The loss of half his arm terrified Manager Wang, and he hurriedly retreated several steps before turning to stare at Yang Kai with surprise and anger, clear shock apparent on his face. He was an origin-returning realm master, yet in a battle with a second-order Saint King, he had actually been seriously injured. If he told this story to anyone else, they would never have believed him. Quickly condensing his Saint Chi at the severed section of his arm to prevent his blood from flowing out, the old man surnamed Wang took out a pill from his space ring and tossed it into his mouth, all while keeping a watchful and somewhat fearful eye on Yang Kai. Since this boy could hurt him, he could also kill him. Only now did Manager Wang have a moment to investigate the anomalies occurring inside his knowledge sea. If it wasn't for the sharp pain in his soul a moment ago, he would have been able to notice the strangeness of this boy's last attack, so it was urgent to figure out what was happening to his knowledge sea. After a brief investigation, though, the old man surnamed Wang went pale and called out in shock, "Soul-devouring insects? How is that possible?" Under his investigation, he discovered that countless tiny insects had, at some point, infested his knowledge sea. These insects were so small they were invisible to the naked eye, and at the moment they were actually lying dormant, seemingly waiting for orders before launching an attack. The changes in his knowledge sea just now were obviously because these soul-devouring insects had begun consuming his spiritual energy. Could the reason his Saint King realm subordinates had been cut apart so easily by Yang Kai's golden thread net have something to do with these soul-devouring insects as well? After understanding this point, Manager Wang felt cold sweat drip down his forehead. He had heard about soul-devouring insects before, but although they had quite an ominous reputation ordinarily, he wouldn't place them in his eyes, because with his origin realm strength, he should be fully capable of expelling them. However, these soul-devouring insects were obviously different, some kind of mutated or evolved species. When Manager Wang tried to use his divine sense to drive them out, they remained completely unaffected, still burrowed deep into his knowledge sea, turning into a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. If he wanted to purge them completely, Manager Wang estimated it would take him at least 2 days of focused meditation. Realizing this, the old man surnamed Wang suddenly began contemplating retreating. His Shi and soul-bearing bell were restrained and he had been seriously injured. On top of that, these soul-devouring insects had infested his knowledge sea and were just waiting for an opportunity to strike. If he didn't withdraw now, he might never be able to. That black blade-like attack which cut through his arm frightened him terribly. Even able to recognize my soul-devouring insects, old dog, it seems your knowledge is quite broad. However, your luck has run out. Your Shi is useless against me. So this young master is truly your ultimate nemesis. Yang Kai laughed sarcastically, waving his hand as he spoke, sending out a series of space blades that tore through space as they slashed forward. If someone were to probe these attacks with their divine sense, they would actually discover that they were composed of nothingness, as if they didn't even really exist. In an instant, more than a dozen pitch-black space blades silently shot towards the old man surnamed Wang. Manager Wang's eyes twitched and his complexion turned extremely ugly as he shouted, "Boy, don't get too cocky." At the same time, he suddenly soared up into the sky and a mass of black mist burst from his body, covering a several dozen meter radius, this strange skill completely concealing his figure. However, after the dozen or so space blades hacked through this black mist, leaving a series of wide, clear passages in their wake, the old man surnamed Wang's voice cried out as he hurriedly tried to dodge. "Old dog, use whatever means you have at your disposal. Today, this young master will let you die convinced." Yang Kai grinned mockingly as he began taunting his opponent, disrupting his concentration while unleashing a flurry of space blades towards him. Manager Wang nearly coughed up blood when he heard Yang Kai's words, as they were exactly the ones he had spoken not long ago. However, the situation had completely reversed since then. Feeling like he had slapped his own face, Manager Wang's face turned a deep shade of crimson from both anger and embarrassment. At the same time, his expression filled with unwillingness, as he was forced to continue dodging Yang Kai's space blades, unable to even argue back, much less counterattack. When his arm had been severed by these black blade-like attacks, Manager Wang was unable to see the attribute of this attack, but now he had some speculations. After all, the space force fluctuations emanating from the space blades was quite obvious. Manager Wang wasn't a fool, so how could he not detect this? The old man surnamed Wang was genuinely shocked. He never knew that on Shadowed Star someone had actually cultivated the Tao of space to the point where they could condense a blade of space force and use it in combat with an enemy from a distance. Even Elder Mo Xiaosheng from Heaven Battling Union couldn't do this. It was rumored that Elder Mo was proficient in the Tao of space, and many great forces would need to seek his assistance to repair their space arrays when they became damaged or malfunctioned, but even Elder Mo's use of space force was not on the same level as that of this rampant young man. The other party not only possessed soul-devouring insects capable of threatening him, he had also mastered this profound and mysterious skill. Manager Wang no longer dared underestimate Yang Kai and instead considered him an opponent of equal strength. The stream of space blades seemed inexhaustible and each one fierce and unstoppable, cutting through and swallowing anything in their path as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, making dodging the only action Manager Wang could take. "Old dog, do you only know how to flee?" Yang Kai snorted, and after releasing a few more space blades, a lotus flower illusion suddenly appeared in his eyes as he shouted lowly, "Blossoming Lotus!" While desperately dodging all of the space blades, Manager Wang's figure suddenly came to an abrupt halt. Even if his gaze wasn't meeting Yang Kai's at this moment, a lotus bud still appeared in his vision, and in an instant, the entire world seemed to disappear, leaving only the radiant seven-colored bud. In the next moment, the old man surnamed Wang felt the spiritual energy in his knowledge seem madly draining towards the strange lotus bud, a phenomenon he was completely incapable of controlling. As the spiritual energy of his knowledge sea was consumed, the lotus bud actually began to quickly blossom. Although he didn't understand what mysteries this blossoming lotus bud held, the old man surnamed Wang knew that he mustn't allow it to fully bloom, otherwise the consequences would be dire. With a great shout, Manager Wang bit his tongue and forcibly withdrew his attention from the blossoming lotus, causing his knowledge sea to tumble violently. Honk! A loud explosion resounded from the depths of Manager Wang's soul, and his face instantly went pale white, coughing up a mouthful of blood. His body staggered and he instantly felt several dozen years older. Manager Wang had used some secret technique to burst the lotus bud, but doing so had clearly caused great damage to his own soul. Xianxia was dumbstruck as she stood to the side and observed this battle, her eyes flashing brilliantly as her expression was filled with both joy and shock. When she first noticed that they had fallen into an ambush, Xianxia thought that all hope was lost. But how could she have imagined that the enemies she felt were impossible to defeat were actually easily routed and killed off by Yang Kai? Even Manager Wang wasn't Yang Kai's opponent. If Xianxia didn't know Manager Wang, she might have thought that he was just another Saint King realm cultivator. But she was well aware that he was a genuine origin returning realm master. When she saw him, she was also trembling and talking carefully. But now, Manager Wang was panicking like a stray dog, no longer holding the swag of a former senior expert. For a time, Xianxia felt quite complex in her heart, staring at Yang Kai in something of a daze while thinking that Su Yan's vision was really profound. When she had first met Yang Kai, she had looked down on and despised him greatly, but it seemed that Su Yan was the one who really stood high and saw far. At this moment, she finally relaxed and took the opportunity to glance over at Yang Yan. But what she found was that the other party's expression was completely indifferent, as if she hadn't felt any tension at all. Xianxia now realized that, from the start, Yang Yan had complete confidence in Yang Kai's ability to win. Seems origin returning realm masters really aren't much. Yang Kai sneered sarcastically. In all honesty, I have no interest in Chen Shitao at all, nor did I have any intention to get in Wang Yuhan's way. It was all your grandnephew's petty insecurity that brought about his own destruction, even implicating his elder in the process. If I were you, after acting so stupidly, I would get it over with and just kill myself. Why bother struggling to maintain your worthless existence? After listening to sarcastic ridicule, Manager Wang felt immense regret and annoyance. If what this boy said was really true, what was the point in coming here in the first place? To be humiliated and then die? At this moment, Manager Wang wished he could drag Wang Yuhan back from hell, so he could kill him a dozen times over. Although he continued wearing a fierce look on his face, in truth, he was already beginning to weaken. He realized that even if he was in his peak state, he couldn't defeat this strange boy. If he did not find an opportunity to escape soon, he might really never be able to leave here again. A ruthless light flashed across Manager Wang's eyes as he lifted his hand and pointed a hand sign towards the giant black flag he was using to resist the 100 Mountains picture, causing an unstable energy fluctuation to burst out from it. In the next instant, a loud explosion rang out as countless illusory phantoms flew out uncontrollably. This artifact actually had the power to self-destruct. Yang Kai was shocked by this unexpected development and quickly withdrew the 100 Mountains picture before once again summoning his purple shield in front of Qianyu and Yang Yan to protect them from the explosion fallout. By the time Yang Kai finished this, he suddenly discovered that the old man surnamed Wang was already 1,000 meters away. To think he is really trying to flee. Yang Kai coldly snorted as he unfurled his wind and thunder wings, his figure flickering and disappearing in a storm of wind and thunder. So far, he had not killed an origin-returning realm cultivator. So with such a rare opportunity in front of him, how could he possibly miss it? Moreover, after observing the various methods used by this old man surnamed Wang, it was obvious the other party's understanding of Shi was quite deep. As long as Yang Kai could kill him and absorb his remnant soul along with his understanding of the heavenly way and martial Tao, it would be possible to begin comprehending Shi, preparing him for his eventual breakthrough to the origin returning realm. Although Manager Wang's cultivation was higher than Yang Kai's, he was still quite heavily injured. So with the assistance of his wind and thunder wings, Yang Kai was able to move much faster. Yang Kai was quickly closing the 1,000-meter gap between himself and Manager Wang. But just as he was about to catch up, Yang Kai felt a shocking energy fluctuation rapidly approaching from behind. In the next instant, a stream of light shot past him and impacted the old man surnamed Wang's back. A pitiful scream rang out before Manager Wang fell to the ground, struggling for only a moment before lying still. Yang Kai raised his brow as he looked back in surprise only to see Yang Yen in her black robe holding up a crossbow-like artifact. Yang Kai recognized this artifact as one of the prizes he had looted in the flowing flame sand field. He had obtained it from a cultivator from the Xie family. The other party had used this artifact to sneak attack him but had ultimately failed to kill Yang Kai. In the end, Yang Kai had ended the Xie family cultivator's life. This artifact's power was quite impressive, but the cost to use it was equally high, even requiring a blood sacrifice from its wielder, a truly evil artifact. As such, Yang Kai had not paid much attention to this crossbow after obtaining it and had simply tossed it into his space ring. Now it seems that Yang Yen had improved and enhanced it, allowing her to use it against enemies in combat. The old man surnamed Wang dying like this saved Yang Kai some trouble, so he didn't mind either way. Immediately walking over the body, Yang Kai urged the power of his demon eye of annihilation, and soon, Manager Wang's soul remnant was sucked into Yang Kai's knowledge sea and purified. Finished with this, Yang Kai removed Manager Wang's space ring before turning around and returning to Yang Yen and Qian Yu. Inside the abandoned hall, Qian Yu stared at Yang Kai, as if she was having trouble recognizing him. After Yang Yen used the crossbow artifact, she had nearly collapsed, and her face had gone quite pale. It seemed even after her special refinement and improvement, the cost of using this artifact was still quite high. Let's rest here for a while before setting out again. There should be no further ambushes, Yang Kai said before handing Yang Yen a bottle of pills, then walking over to the space array. He wanted to completely destroy the space array to ensure that any further arrangements his opponents might have made couldn't be implemented, and to ensure that no clues about what happened here were left behind. Taking advantage of this time, Yang Yen quickly adjusted her breathing, while Qian Yu went to clean up the remains of the other fallen Saint King realm cultivators. While Yang Yen sat in meditation, both Yang Kai and Qian Yu finished their respective work, and Qian Yu handed over the space rings she had collected to Yang Kai, the look of shock still lingering on her face, as if she was unable to believe the scene she had just witnessed, even now. Yang Kai glanced at her and naturally understood what she was thinking. Waving his hand lightly, he said, "Keep those space rings for yourself. There's probably nothing good inside them, but there are probably some resources which will be suitable for you to use. Don't reject. When you reach Dragon Cave Mountain, you'll understand what true riches look like and how worthless these things are." Qian Yu froze for a moment, but eventually did not object, simply happily replying, "Then I'll look forward to it." She really could not help anticipating arriving at Dragon Cave Mountain now. Since wandering about destitute through the star field and arriving at Joyous Union Pavilion, Qian Yu had never met anyone she knew or found a place to rely on. She felt like a rootless tree, a river without a source, suffering through each day. But now, Yang Kai had appeared in front of her, allowing her to find a pillar of support for her weary heart and giving her hope for the future. Although Yang Kai was her junior, this junior had now exceeded her cultivation, so depending on him a little was not something to feel embarrassed about. While waiting for Yang Yen to restore herself, Yang Kai sat down and began reviewing his gains and losses from this battle. This was not the first time Yang Kai had battled an origin-returning realm master, but it was his first time killing such a cultivator. If not for the interference from his soul-devouring insects and his mastery of the Tao of space, however, Yang Kai estimated he would not have been Manager Wang's opponent. Nevertheless, this battle allowed him to understand that his golden blood thread could cut apart Sure. A pleasant surprise. When Deng Ning of Demon Blood Temple handed him the Demon Blood Thread's secret technique, he had not mentioned anything about this particular ability. Facing this old man surnamed Wang, a First-Order Origin returning realm master, Yang Kai had to go all out, so what about a master at the second order or third order? Yang Kai suddenly realized that his cultivation realm was still too low. After returning to Dragon Cave Mountain, he decided to enter retreat to break through to the next realm. Only when his cultivation reached the origin returning realm would he not have to fear anyone on Shadowed Star. Half a day later, Yang Yan had restored herself sufficiently. So Yang Kai summoned his star shuttle and left this deserted city with the two women. After flying for 2 days, the trio arrived at a small town and Yang Kai flew down to ask for directions. After learning that this place was only half a month away from Heavenly Fate City, he finally relaxed. He was really afraid that the deserted city was actually farther away from Heavenly Fate City than Black Crow City. But it seemed his luck was good and Wang Yuhan had chosen to set up this ambush in the same direction as Heavenly Fate City. On top of that, they had arrived inside Shadow Moon Hall's territory. So with his friendship with Chen Tong, Wei Guchang, and Dong Shener, they were basically safe. Along the way, Yang Kai remained silent as he was immersed in planning what to do in the future, while Yang Yan and Chen Yu chatted a bit from time to time. Like this, half a month passed by and the group of 3 arrived at Dragon Cave Mountain. As soon as she saw this place, Chen Yu fell in love with it. Although Dragon Cave Mountain was not as grand and imposing as the foundations of a great sect, it had its own unique style. The mountains and rivers here were all incredibly beautiful, making it seem like an untouched paradise. After letting Yang Yan help Chen Yu settle in, Yang Kai went to see the divine tree and learned that it was currently in good spirits. On top of that, the golden sun fruit tree Yang Kai had transplanted was now doing well, its vitality slowly growing stronger with no possibility of it perishing anymore. After giving the divine tree a drop of golden blood, Yang Kai immediately announced he was entering retreat. Inside his cave mansion, Yang Kai played with a small, crystal-clear bead in his hand as tenderness filled his eyes. This bead was Su Yan's Ice Soul bead. As long as this bead remained intact, the person who condensed it was certainly still alive. Although he did not know where Su Yan was right now, as long as this Ice Soul bead remained, it meant she was still fine. Feeling Su Yan's aura gently wafting from this bead made Yang Kai feel nostalgic. After watching it for a long time, Yang Kai smiled warmly, held it tightly, closed his eyes, and silently cultivated, attempting to break through. Back in Joyous Union Pavilion, Yang Kai had touched the threshold of the Third Order Saint King realm. But at that time, he was too anxious to hear news about Su Yan, so he had firmly suppressed his breakthrough. Now that he had returned to Dragon Cave Mountain, his first order of business was to attempt a breakthrough again. The 10,000-year incense burned in the background, its mellow and calming fragrance filling the air. The place where Yang Kai chose to meditate was also right beside the 9-branch jade crystal tree, and with his thorough comprehension of the heavenly way and martial Tao, this breakthrough posed no problem to him. With just a trivial 10 days' worth of effort, and without the assistance of any pills or saint crystals, Yang Kai successfully broke through to the Third Order Saint King realm. His breakthrough did not cause any spectacular scene as the cave mansion was completely isolated by powerful spirit arrays, so not even the other residents of Dragon Cave Mountain knew Yang Kai had made a breakthrough. After taking another month or so to consolidate his cultivation, Yang Kai began taking inventory of his harvest from his latest trip. With a thought, Yang Kai summoned another bead into the palm of his hand. This bead was different from Su Yan's Ice Soul bead. It had an inconspicuous gray appearance. It was the colored glass bead Dai Yuan had given him. As Dai Yuan cultivated her 1,000 illusion-colored glass art, taking a small amount of 1,000 illusion-colored glass into her body, she was able to condense this bead, which was equivalent to the monster core of a monster beast. It was extremely valuable. Dai Yuan had said that if he could refine this colored glass bead, he might be able to comprehend the mysteries of colored glass divine light. Colored glass divine light had the incredible ability to suppress other souls, and it was very difficult to guard against. Yang Kai had even suffered a small loss to this colored glass divine light, so he had a deep interest in it. If he could really achieve what Dai Yuan said, it would give him another powerful card to use in battle. Moreover, colored glass divine light shared some similarities with his demon eye of annihilation. Both had the function of suppressing other souls, so if he was able to combine the two of them, Yang Kai couldn't say what kind of mutation would happen. After quietly contemplating for a while, Xianxia decided to put aside this colored glass bead for now and instead take out his Origin King-grade artifact refining furnace. Inside the corpse cave, in order to collect the sun's true essence, the Firebird artifact spirit had suffered some injuries, but Xianxia had learned afterwards that this had actually been a blessing in disguise because the artifact spirit had ingested a wisp of sun's true fire and was assimilating it inside the artifact refining furnace. Now, more than a month had passed, yet the Firebird showed no signs of awakening as it was still refining that wisp of sun's true fire. However, when he observed it, Xianxia discovered that the wisp of sun's true fire had diminished greatly while the artifact spirit's aura had become significantly more powerful. Xianxia immediately understood that the artifact spirit had truly obtained huge benefits from that incident. Leaving it alone, Xianxia put away the artifact refining furnace. Next, Xianxia checked on the stone puppet. The stone puppet was the same as the artifact spirit. Some time ago, when the stone puppet spat out the sun's true essence, Xianxia had told it to absorb as much mineral essence as it needed to repair itself. But upon seeing it now, Xianxia couldn't help feeling a bit surprised. The stone puppet's injuries were now completely healed, and after being released by Xianxia, its pair of eyes sparkled somewhat, its spirituality having obviously increased greatly. However, what shocked Xianxia the most was that the stone puppet's body now seemed to contain an extremely intense fire attribute energy. Even with his powerful divine sense, Xianxia was unable to probe this fire attribute energy as it was burnt the moment it tried to make contact with it. Sun's true fire. Unexpectedly, the stone puppet had absorbed some sun's true fire, and it had finished refining the sun's true fire even before the fire attribute artifact spirit. This was a bit of a pleasant surprise and made Xianxia realize just how powerful the stone puppet's innate talent was. Even the artifact spirit born from pure fire attribute energy could not compare to it. The stone puppet had an innate ability to quench and refine minerals, and now it seemed that the sun's true fire was no exception. In the future, this pure fire attribute energy would only become purer and more potent. Unfortunately, Xianxia had yet to find another blood essence stone. After all, there was another stone puppet in his black book space, but without a blood essence stone. That stone puppet couldn't be hatched from its black shell. After confirming that the stone puppet was all right, and even gained some unexpected advantages, Xianxia sent it a divine sense command. The stone puppet opened its mouth a moment later and began spitting out a massive amount of refined ores, soon creating a massive hill in front of Xianxia. These items were all from the corpse cave and had been swallowed by the stone puppet. At that time, Xianxia and Yang had been busy trying to collect the sun's true essence, so they hadn't had any time to deal with the mountains of materials and Saint crystals lying around. Therefore, they had let the stone puppet handle this matter. There had been 7 or 8 hills of various ores and a few more of pure Saint crystals, so although the stone puppet only had time to swallow about half of them, they still added up to an amazing amount. Some of the ores had their essence absorbed by the stone puppet to strengthen it and make up for the damage caused by the sun's true fire, but the vast majority was now piled up in front of Xianxia. Up until now, Xianxia had too many things on his mind, so he wasn't able to take inventory of this harvest. But since they had been piled up out in the open, Xianxia figured these materials weren't as high in quality or rarity as the ores he had found in the 4 space rings atop the ice jade pedestal. Sweeping them with his divine sense, Xianxia confirmed his speculations. However, he did not need to worry about such things as all these minerals would be handed over to Yang to process. While preparing to stuff these ores into space rings, Xianxia's eyes suddenly landed on one of the hills of materials. He reached out and picked up a fist-sized, perfectly round, flawless and pure white object. Staring at this sphere in amazement, Xianxia soon had a thought and a look of surprise filled his eyes. Circulating his secret art, he noticed the huge amount of pure energy flowing from the sphere in his hand into his body, and his expression turned strange. Glancing over at the stone puppet in amazement and asking, "You can even purify this kind of thing?" The stone puppet looked at him with a tilted head and did not say a word. Xianxia smiled slightly, knowing that it might not be able to express its thoughts. After all, the stone puppet's sapience was limited. Taking out the token Yang Yen gave him to control the cave mansion's arrays. Yang Kai poured his divine sense into it and sent out a message. A moment later, the barrier around the cave mansion was opened from the outside and Yang Yen walked in quickly, asking curiously, "Didn't you say you were going to enter retreat? Why suddenly call me over?" "Look at this," Yang Kai said as he tossed the white sphere in his hand over to her. Catching it, Yang Yen looked at him suspiciously for a moment before taking a closer look at the sphere. Soon after, Yang Yan's beautiful eyes widened as a look of pleasant surprise filled her face, as if she had just discovered something incredible. Quickly turning to Yang Kai, she eagerly asked, "Where did you get this thing? Are there any more?" Yang Kai simply pointed his finger to a hill in front of him. Yang Yen turned her head in the direction he pointed and was immediately dumbstruck as she saw many similar spheres lying in that hill. After a few breaths, Yang Yen let out a cry of joy as she rushed over to the hill and began stuffing everything into her own space ring. "Leave me a few." Yang Kai stared at her with a depressed expression. "What do you want them for?" Yang Yen snorted as her small hand covered her space ring, hiding it from view. "Cultivation. You can see what these things are formed from, right? I just finished breaking through, so using these things will help better consolidate my realm," Yang Kai said while his face twitched slightly. "Of course I can see what this is. These things should have been condensed by Xiao, right?" Yang Yen picked up the stone puppet and kissed it repeatedly, causing Yang Kai to wear a dumbfounded look while the stone puppet wore a helpless one. "I didn't expect that Xiao could even purify and compress Saint crystals. This is perfect. One of the worries I had has been solved." Yang Yen stared at the stone puppet with her beautiful eyes, seemingly wishing she could kiss it a few more times. "Can stone puppets even purify and compress Saint crystals? Did you know about this before?" Yang Kai asked curiously. Yang Yen shook her head. "I tried before, but Xiao didn't have this ability then. Stone puppets have an innate ability to absorb and temper various ores and mineral essences, refining them into their bodies to strengthen themselves. Xiao being able to do this now might have something to do with it absorbing some of the sun's true essence, although I'm not completely sure." Hearing this, Yang Kai gently nodded. The sun's true essence was said to be the source essence extracted from a sun star. The stone puppet had refined a little sun's true fire, so it wasn't surprising that its abilities had undergone some changes. However, being able to purify and compress Saint crystals, transforming their essence into the shape of a ball, was quite a sensational development. Throughout the star field, the highest quality Saint crystal known so far was high-rank Saint crystal, but the existence of this sphere completely went against that norm, creating a brand new precedent. The energy contained in this sphere was both denser and purer than an equivalent-sized piece of high-rank Saint crystal. Yang Kai had only absorbed a small part of it, but he estimated that the energy contained inside this sphere was 5 to 6 times greater than high-rank Saint crystal. That was not to say that the value of this sphere was only that of 5 or 6 high-rank Saint crystals of equivalent size. In fact, its value was far greater than this. In theory, the exchange ratio between high-rank Saint crystal, mid-rank Saint crystal, and low-rank Saint crystal was 1 to 10, but every cultivator knew that in truth, the higher the rank of Saint crystal, the greater its value was. With higher quality Saint crystals, a cultivator would be better able to impact their bottlenecks, restore their Saint Qi, or restore themselves while meditating. At a critical moment, such an advantage may even mean the difference between life and death. Although the energy contained in this sphere was only equivalent to the sum of 5 or 6 high-rank Saint crystals of equal size, if it were to be circulated in large quantities, it would likely be valued at 10 or even 20 high-rank Saint crystals. Of course, that was only assuming a massive amount of them entered the market. If this sphere were to be auctioned off as a single treasure, it could likely sell for 100,000 high-rank Saint crystals or more. After all, rare things were always more expensive. Of course, Yang Kai didn't have any intention of releasing these things into the market. From Yang Yan's reaction just now, this Saint crystal sphere, which had unintentionally been compressed by the stone puppet, was of great use to her. Most likely, this was related to whatever secret project she had been working on. Yang Kai did not ask any questions though. Since Yang Yen had said she wanted to give him a surprise, he decided to patiently wait until she was ready to reveal it to him. After confirming that these spheres were something the stone puppet had created after refining the sun's true fire, Yang Kai set the matter aside and asked Yang Yen about Qianyu. Apparently, since coming here, Qianyu had quickly gotten close to the other residents and Wui had provided her with a lot of cultivation resources and a good cultivation environment. Right now, she was also in secluded retreat. After about the time it would take to boil a cup of tea, Yang Yen happily walked out of Yang Kai's cave mansion, taking with her not only the strange St. Crystal spheres and all of the various ores, but even the stone puppet as well. According to her, even if Yang Kai had not called her over, she would have come looking for him to ask for the stone puppet's help. With the stone puppet beside her, the efficiency of her artifact refining would greatly increase, which was essential to bringing her grand plan to fruition. After Yang Yen left, Yang Kai opened the cave mansion barrier again, while touching the special space ring Yang Yen had refined for him with a smile on his face. There were only two things inside this ring: the 10,000-year ice jade pedestal and the sun's true essence. However, these two things were without a doubt the most valuable and precious treasures he had obtained on this trip. If any news were to leak of their existence, it would create a stir across all of Shadowed Star. Pondering for a while, Yang Kai's expression became dignified as he took out a certain ancient book. This ancient book had also been obtained from the corpse cave and had once belonged to the ancient Yang sect. At first, there were too many of these ancient books and Yang Kai did not have time to investigate them carefully. Later, while Yang Yen was refining the special space ring to store the sun's true essence, Yang Kai casually browsed through these ancient books, and this one in particular had caught his attention. Because this ancient book was not some ordinary secret art, but rather one that was specifically for body tempering. Yang Kai's physical body was already much stronger than average cultivators in the same realm, but this was a result of various opportunities he had come across over the years rather than intentional cultivation. Secret arts specifically for body tempering and soul cultivation were extremely rare, and even if some were occasionally widely circulated outside, they were generally trash that couldn't enter the eyes of truly powerful masters. Yang Kai naturally looked down on these generic methods as well. Yang Kai had never expected that in the underground corpse cave of the ancient Yang sect, he would obtain this 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art. When Yang Kai first saw it, he thought that this secret book was an art related to swordsmanship, but after careful investigation, he learned it was actually a body tempering secret art. Yang Kai had a rough understanding of this secret art from the last time he browsed through and knew it was extremely profound and mysterious. If this 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art worked as described, once someone cultivated it to the extreme, they would be able to obtain a near immortal and indestructible physique. Moreover, even at the minor accomplishment stage, one would be able to use their vitality and blood chi to condense 5 elements profound heavenly sword chi, which had incredible offensive and defensive power. Reading about this secret art's possibilities made Yang Kai excited, but the requirements to cultivate it were also extremely high. The physical strength of anyone who wished to cultivate this secret art had to already be at least twice as high as an average cultivator in the same realm just to withstand the pain involved in the tempering process. This condition was no problem for Yang Kai. Secondly, one needed to possess extremely strong vitality because cultivating this secret art would cause a great deal of harm to oneself. If one did not possess tenacious vitality, not only would they fail to cultivate this secret art, they may end up losing their life in the process. Yang Kai felt that this requirement would also not be an issue for him. Although he did not dare claim he had the strongest vitality of any cultivator in the star field, with the astonishing restorative power of his golden blood, he was confident that only a few people could surpass him in this aspect. Thirdly, to cultivate the 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art, one needed to obtain extremely high-rank precious treasures from the 5 basic elements. By absorbing and refining the energy contained in these precious treasures, they would continuously temper their flesh and wash their marrow. After many years of repeated accumulation, one would eventually reach the pinnacle of the 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art. What kind of precious treasures were required was only vaguely described in the 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art's ancient book, but essentially the minimum requirement would be something equivalent to a 10th order monster beast's monster core. This requirement alone basically made it impossible for anyone on Shadowed Star to cultivate this secret art, After all, 10th Order monster beasts were equivalent to Origin King Realm Masters, and there were no such things on Shadowed Star. Yang Kai currently had 2 treasures he was certain met these criteria: the sun's true essence and the profound in sunflower water. The 10,000-year ice jade pedestal also met the appropriate conditions, but if he were to really begin cultivating this secret art, Yang Kai wasn't prepared to use the 10,000-year ice jade pedestal as he had other important uses for it. In addition to the fire and water attribute treasures, Yang Kai also had the birdwood, which might satisfy the wood attribute treasure. This birdwood was something Yang Kai obtained before arriving on Shadowed Star, and was formed from the corpse of a 10th Order Thunder Luan monster beast. It should be no worse than the monster core of a 10th Order monster beast in value. As for where he could find appropriate earth and metal attribute treasures, Yang Kai temporarily had no ideas. However, he wasn't in a hurry. After all, even if he did manage to gather treasures from all 5 elements, he didn't have time to dedicate to cultivating this body-tempering secret art. Right now, Yang Kai had to cultivate his space blade and golden blood thread secret technique, refine the dragon bone and dragon bead, and find a way to refine the colored glass bead. The golden blood thread was of particular importance to Yang Kai after he learned that it was capable of cutting through Shur. Yang Kai's evaluation of this demon blood temple secret technique had risen dramatically after he discovered this, and he couldn't help praising its creator for their ingenuity once more. Currently, he had only cultivated a single golden blood thread, and even that had yet to reach the grand accomplishment stage. Yang Kai wanted to cultivate more golden blood threads, but he had no idea how much time that would take. For these reasons, even though Yang Kai was extremely interested in this 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art, he didn't immediately begin cultivating it, planning to wait until he collected all the required treasures first. Of course, studying and comprehending this secret art wasn't an issue, as doing so would allow him to gain twice the result with half the effort once he did begin cultivating it. After silently making up his mind, Yang Kai temporarily stored the 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art back into his space ring before clearing his head of distractions and beginning to absorb the soul remnant left behind by Manager Wang. This was the first Origin returning realm soul remnant that Yang Kai had absorbed, so naturally he was quite prudent and careful with it, refining it slowly to ensure he didn't miss anything. After 3 days, the soul remnant of the old man surnamed Wang was completely refined, and Yang Kai opened his eyes to reveal a thoughtful look. Although Manager Wang's cultivation wasn't very high, he had spent many years in the First Order Origin returning realm and had his own unique insights into Shur. Now, these insights had become Yang Kai's, and through this refinement, he had gained a small understanding of Shur. An understanding was one thing, but Yang Kai realized even more now that if he wanted to try to cultivate Shur, it would be almost impossible unless he broke through to the Origin returning realm. However, if he were to face an Origin returning realm master again, Yang Kai would now be able to use his understanding of Shur to bolster his resistance to it. So it wasn't like he hadn't obtained any immediate benefits at all. Yang Kai believed that as long as he killed more Origin returning realm masters in the future, his comprehension of Shur would continue to increase, allowing many grains of sand to become a tall tower and ultimately reach a height greater than anyone else. Regarding the process of breaking through, only when an Origin returning realm master cultivated their Shur to the grand accomplishment stage would they have a chance to break through to the Origin King realm, but on Shadowed Star no person was able to achieve this, so no Origin King realm masters currently existed here. The world principles of Shadowed Star suppressed all the Origin realm masters' understanding of Shur. Yang Kai had yet to reach this level, but even so, it was impossible for him to remain trapped on Shadowed Star forever. If he really reached the peak of the Third Order Origin returning realm, Yang Kai would find a way to leave Shadowed Star, escape the suppression of its world principles, and break through to the Origin King realm in the outside world. It was too early to be worried about such things, however, so Yang Kai quickly focused his mind and took out the colored glass bead die Yuan had given him, holding it in his palm before silently pouring his Saint Chi into it, attempting to refine it. After maintaining this process for some time, Yang Kai's eyes flashed as a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face, immediately increasing the output of his Saint Chi. A faint multicolored light began leaking from the colored glass bead into Yang Kai's body, and under his guidance, it began gathering in his left eye. This colored glass bead was equivalent to a monster beast's monster core. So Xianxia had thought that refining it and absorbing the energy from a monster beast's monster core would be the same. Therefore, he had tried to use this kind of direct method and, to his surprise, it seemed this method was not only effective but also quite easy to implement. This made him overjoyed. No longer holding back, Xianxia slowly began to refine this colored glass bead, while continuing to cultivate the golden blood threads inside his body at the same time. Time flew by and soon it had been 2 months. This day, Xianxia slowly opened his eyes and glanced down at his empty palm, furrowing his brow. After 2 months of absorption, the colored glass bead dye Yuan had given him was finally consumed clean and no longer existed. However, although this colored glass bead's essence had been absorbed into his body, it would still take some time for Xianxia to completely refine it. Now, in his knowledge sea, the gorgeous glowing light comprised of the colored glass divine light contained inside the colored glass bead was suspended close to the demon eye of annihilation. However, Xianxia felt that it was going to take quite some time to fuse this colored glass divine light with his demon eye of annihilation, something that slightly differed from his expectations, causing him to feel a bit unhappy. After all, according to his previous predictions, the demon eye of annihilation and the colored glass divine light shared many similarities. So, in theory, they should have easily integrated, but now it appeared that his thinking had been too naive. But such a possibility wasn't beyond Xianxia's expectations, and as long as there was enough time, the colored glass divine light and his demon eye of annihilation could be successfully combined. The only difference now was how long it would take. Putting this matter aside temporarily, Xianxia waved his hand casually and 2 golden threads appeared from it. One of these golden threads radiated a brilliant golden light and seemed capable of cutting space itself with unstoppable might. The other golden thread was obviously inferior to the first, with not only its color being dimmer but the power contained within it also being weaker. This golden thread was the second one Xianxia had condensed. When a demon blood temple cultivator cultivated the secret technique, even if they spent their entire life, they may not have been able to create 2 demon blood threads because the foundation of this technique was their own vitality. Everyone had a limited amount of vitality, and using it excessively endangered their life. In Demon Blood Temple, only elder-level characters whose strength had reached the 2nd or 3rd order origin returning realm were capable of cultivating 2 or 3 demon blood threads, while those below the origin realm would never have more than 1. Even so, these elders were only able to cultivate multiple demon blood threads after consuming numerous elixirs to nourish their vitality. Otherwise, once they used too much of their vital energy, they would die. However, Xianxia was different as there were several dozen drops of golden blood in his body. 1 drop of golden blood could be converted into a golden blood thread, and he could increase the amount of golden blood in his veins infinitely. In theory, Xianxia could condense countless golden blood threads, which was also why he dedicated so much time and effort to this secret technique. It was simply tailor-made for him. More than a month ago, he felt that his first golden thread had been cultivated as far as it could be. It wasn't that this golden thread was refined to its peak though, because he had only obtained the first half of the demon blood thread secret technique. Xianxia simply didn't know how to continue enhancing this golden thread. With no other choice, Xianxia began to cultivate this second thread. With his previous experience, this second golden thread took shape much faster than the first, and Xianxia was certain he could bring it to its limit much faster as well. Also, while cultivating the second golden thread, Xianxia faintly realized something. He felt that this secret technique wasn't as simple as he first thought. If he had enough golden threads, he may be able to combine them to take on new forms and functions, but none of these were introduced in the first half of the demon blood thread secret technique, so Xianxia could only speculate that they were hidden in the second half. After cultivating his golden threads to their limit, Xianxia had no idea how to continue enhancing them or how to combine or manipulate them. So everything right now was only his own speculation. It seemed that if there was a chance in the future, he would have to pay Demon Blood Temple a visit. Only by obtaining the second half of the Demon Blood Thread secret technique could he continue enhancing his golden blood threads. During this retreat, Xianxia had gained a lot, and, after calculating how much time he had been in seclusion, he decided it was time to go out. He remembered Yang Yen saying that she would require his power to complete whatever project she was working on last time, but he couldn't tell if that time had come yet. Since he had been in retreat all this time, Yang Yen had definitely not considered disturbing him. Having made up his mind, Yang Kai took another look at the red candle fruit piece to make sure it showed no signs of withering under the nourishing of the red candle stalk before opening the cave mansion's barrier and leaving. The world energy aura on Dragon Cave Mountain seemed to have become a bit richer than before, but this was only to be expected as there weren't very many cultivators living here and their respective cultivations weren't high. Because of this, the world energy which was drawn to Dragon Cave Mountain by the aura gathering array would only grow in richness, unlike in big sects where thousands of disciples would continuously consume it. In such sects, even if they had high-quality earth veins providing a constant stream of world energy, maintaining a balance was the best they could do. Dragon Cave Mountain was peaceful and quiet, and as Yang Kai swept his eyes around, he was unable to see anyone at all. This wasn't a surprise though. Releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai quickly found where Yang Yen and the others were. But what puzzled Yang Kai was that all those who had any authority on Dragon Cave Mountain were gathered together, as if they were discussing something important. With a slight smile, Yang Kai wandered over to a bamboo tower where these few people were gathered. But before he arrived, he heard Howen's voice call out, "They're going too far. They were the ones who set the price in the first place, so why is this happening now?" Immediately, Chang-Chi responded in a calming tone, Okay, old Hao, sit down first. The young ones are all sitting calmly, so why are you getting all excited for?" "Foreign Elder Chang, what do you think of this?" Wu Yi asked. "Humph. This situation is clearly a little strange." Chang-Chi replied with a sneer. "Our cooperation with Shadow Moon Hall isn't something recent. Over the past 2 years, the number of materials we have purchased from them can be considered to be astonishing, worth in excess of 200 million Saint crystals. We've always negotiated in good faith and paid in full, but now they are suddenly saying the cost of materials has increased. There's definitely something more to this than meets the eye." "Exactly. Not only that, they even detained Yufeng, which is also truly unusual." Howen seemed to have calmed down and agreed with him. "On top of that, I noticed another strange matter," Wu Yi said pensively deeply. "Oh, what?" "For the past 3 months, many of the shopkeepers and shop hands belonging to Shadow Moon Hall in Heavenly Fate City have been replaced, and the people we're all familiar with have completely disappeared. I cannot even find Luo Qing anymore." Inside the bamboo tower, the group of people looked around at each other as they suddenly realized that something big must have changed inside Shadow Moon Hall. Amidst the crowd's rising suspicions, the main door of the bamboo tower opened, and a single person stepped in. After an initial period of shock, everyone stood up, having recognized the person who entered. Wu Yi said in joy, "Yang Kai, you came out of seclusion?" Yang Kai nodded. Looking around the crowd, his gaze finally settled onto Qianyu. She was looking much better than when Yang Kai saw her at the Joyous Union Pavilion, a reassuring sign that she was rather happy with her life here. Off to the side, Chang-Chi and Howen exchanged a glance, a look of awe flashing across their eyes. Both of them made a fist-palm salute at the same time. "Congratulations, Nephew Yang, for reaching 3rd Order Saint King. Your rate of cultivation is unmatched within the entire Shadowed Star." When they went to the flowing flame sand field, Yang Kai was a mere 1st Order Saint King. By the time they made it out of there, he had reached the 2nd Order, and now he was already a 3rd Order, all within a period of 2 to 3 years. This left the duo with not just a sense of awe, but also a slight feeling of inferiority. Compared to Yang Kai's cultivation speed, they were mediocre at best. "You flatter me, foreign elders. Luck played no small role in getting me to where I am today. Compared to the true geniuses, this is nothing." Yang Kai smiled humbly before changing the topic. "That aside, I heard you discussing Shadow Moon Hall and mentioning something about Yufeng being detained. I want to hear more about this." Hearing Yang Kai's questions, everyone exchanged glances, allowing Wu Yi to take up the role of explaining the situation to Yang Kai. Listening to her explanations, Yang Kai finally found out about the unfavorable occurrences which had taken place in Heavenly Fate City regarding the order of goods Dragon Cave Mountain had made from the Shadow Moon Hall a month ago. A few days ago, Yufeng led cultivators from the Haiku family to Heavenly Fate City to pick up the goods, only to find that they refused to honor the previous terms of exchange, instead raising the price of the goods by more than a good 30%. Such a price was obviously unacceptable, and Yufeng immediately went to reason with Shadow Moon Hall's person-in-charge stationed there. However, they refused to back down a single inch. Exasperated, Yufeng then requested them to return the initial deposit. After all, they were the ones who went back on the contract, and Yufeng thought that they should at least get the deposit back even if they were not going to purchase the goods. Nobody expected even that request to be refused. Not only that, they decided to resort to force to settle the conflict, resulting in Yufeng and the other 4 disciples being injured. Obviously, Yufeng's group wouldn't simply sit there and allow themselves to be beaten up, so they returned a few blows, damaging some of the shelves within the shop. They were immediately captured by an origin-returning realm master, detained, and stripped of all of the Saint crystals which they were preparing to use for the exchange. Only a single disciple was allowed to return to let Dragon Cave Mountain know that they had to prepare a large amount of Saint crystals as ransom. Otherwise, Wu Yi and the rest wouldn't have known about the details either. Having listened to the explanation, Yang Kai remained calm and expressionless, speaking only after a moment of thought. Their lives are not in danger, right? According to the disciple who returned, their injuries are not light, but not that serious either. They should be fine after a few days of recuperation. That's good. Yang Kai nodded, directing his next question to the crowd. What do you think is the problem here? What's the problem? Wu Yi looked bewildered. Then she retorted, everything's a problem. We have been working with the Shadow Moon Hall for so long without facing a single issue. We pay the Saint crystals, they sell us the materials, and we all mutually benefit. In the last few years, we seem to have already become the largest buyers of Shadow Moon Hall. Normally, they should be trying to maintain our interest instead of causing rifts like this. Not to mention, they wouldn't have the courage to do so in the first place. I suspect there's someone behind the scenes giving the orders. I think so too. Changqi agreed. Dragon Cave Mountain doesn't have a strong establishment. Only plenty of resources. The precious stone lands its innocent possessor in jail. Perhaps Shadow Moon Hall is no longer willing to continue trading with us periodically, and instead wishes to take everything that we have in one go. You suspect this is the work of Qian Tong? Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. It's not impossible, Wu Yi nodded. The possibility is there, but I don't think this has anything to do with him. Yang Kai shook his head slowly. Out of everyone here, he'd interacted with Qian Tong the most. Regardless of his inherent character, Qian Tong wouldn't turn against Yang Kai, especially considering his relation with Wei Guchang and Dong Xianer, and how he saved them in the Flowing Flame Sand Field. I heard you saying that 3 months ago, all the Shadow Moon Hall stores at the Heavenly Fate City replaced all their store owners and employees? Is that true? Yang Kai asked again. Yes, that's right. Wu Yi nodded immediately. I often go to Heavenly Fate City, so I'm quite confident about this. In the last 6 months, did anything peculiar or significant happen at the Shadow Moon Hall? Yang Kai furrowed his brows. If we're talking about peculiar things, nothing happened at the Shadow Moon Hall, but there's something going on here. In recent months, a few unfamiliar faces appeared around Dragon Cave Mountain. At first, they were just loitering around the area, but then some of them started trying to breach into our territory. They were caught in the spirit array, and all of them said that it was an accident when we questioned them. We decided to release them after a warning since none of them had high cultivation. As for significant things, well, there was one. What? Yang Kai's expression grew serious. Grandmaster Gu Lin passed away. Wu Yi lowered her voice. Grandmaster Gu Lin? Yang Kai thought for a while before realizing, the low-rank origin-grade artifact refiner of Shadow Moon Hall? That's him. This happened half a year ago. According to rumors, Grandmaster Gu Lin had lost a lot of vitality right after repairing an artifact for Shadow Moon Hall. So much so that he hadn't refined a single artifact these past few years. But what does that have to do with us? I don't know about the exact details, but there might be some connection, Yang Kai pondered. I heard from Qian Tong that he was on very good terms with Grandmaster Gu Lin once. Wu Yi thought for a moment. You're saying that Grandmaster Gu Lin's passing affected Elder Qian Tong, And since he's the one who's been looking out for us, we're being affected too? Yang Kai grinned. It's just my guess. It could also be Qian Tong turning on us, but if it really has something to do with Shadow Moon Hall's internal strife, we should try not to get dragged into the situation. That's right. We definitely can't mess with the matters of Shadow Moon Hall. Wu Yi immediately became more cautious. She hadn't thought about this deep before, but with Yang Kai's help, she was starting to see the underlying issue. Any news from Wei Guchang and Dong Xin'er? Yang Kai asked. Wu Yi shook her head. All that Shadow Moon Hall said was that they were secluding themselves to break through to the origin returning realm. Nothing else. Understandable. Forget it, it's not good to depend on others anyway. I'll make a trip to get Yufeng back. Saint Crystals aside, the people are what's important. That's a whole 20 million Saint Crystals gone. The expression of pain was clearly written on Wu Yi's face. So what's your plan? If they're not going to be nice, then I'm not going to be nice either. Otherwise, they'll really think that Dragon Cave Mountain is an easy target, Yang Kai said coldly. Wu Yi stared at him, dumbfounded. Yang Kai merely smiled and waved away her concerns. If it really is due to internal strife, we have nothing to worry about. They don't have the time to divert any attention onto us, so there probably aren't any masters there. Plus, I myself really want to know exactly who is showing such malicious intent towards our Dragon Cave Mountain. What better way to find out than to personally make a trip there? This elder will accompany you. Chang Chi stood up. Howen said, so will this elder. Even though my and Old Man Chang's cultivations are nothing special, we're still origin returning cultivators. Ever since we broke through, we haven't had a single fight yet. This is the perfect opportunity to test our strength. The two elders looked at each other and smiled. Yang Kai thought this over before replying. All right, then I'm counting on you two foreign elders. The rest of you, however, should stay here. Okay. Be careful, Wu Yi warned. With that settled, Yang Kai exited the bamboo tower with Chang Chi and Howen, took out his star shuttle, and headed straight for Heavenly Fate City. At Heavenly Fate City, in a room within the inner garden of a store called the Gathering Source Hall, Yufeng and the rest were tied up. All of them had bruises all over, and not a single strand of Saint Chi could be detected in their bodies. Clearly, they had all been restricted by a strong barrier. They had been lined up in a single row and forced to kneel on the floor. In front of them was a malicious-looking old man with white hair sitting on a chair of sandalwood and holding a purple teapot in his hands. His eyes were half closed, as if asleep, but the occasional sparkle of ferocity which could be seen in his eyes proved that he was wide awake. Speak. I want to know a safe way into Dragon Cave Mountain. Speak and I will allow you to leave, so you no longer have to suffer. Beside the old man stood a fierce-looking brute, toying with a long whip with the thickness of 3 fingers in his hands as he spoke. Tui! Yufeng's reply was a glob of spit mixed with some blood aimed right at the brute's face. You want information from me? Dream on. I die before handing any information over to you despicable lot. The brute stayed still, allowing the glob of spit to run down his face. He smiled viciously, and the whip in his hands suddenly moved, swishing through the air and landing on Yufeng's face. Coupled with a resounding crack, the right side of Yufeng's face tore open, and a piece of mutilated meat flew out amidst the bloodshed. Yufeng's whole body was shaken by the force of the blow, nearly causing him to fall over. However, he quickly straightened back up, roaring with a fierce look in his eyes. Come on! You can beat me to death today, and you still won't get anything out of me. Just wait till you rush into Dragon Cave Mountain and get ripped to pieces by the thousands of spirit arrays there. Ha 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 ha. The arrogant laughter caused a look of annoyance to show on the brute's face, and even the old man seated on the chair was starting to lose his patience. The old man was a first-order origin returning cultivator. If it weren't for certain concerns he would have saved himself all this trouble by reading the information from Yufeng's mind using a soul search. However, because of said concerns, the old man didn't dare to kill off anyone just yet. Furthermore, using a soul search was exhausting and did not guarantee that one will get the exact piece of information that one is looking for. These factors combined were why he was resorting to these simple methods of interrogation instead. Seeing how stubborn Yufeng was, the malicious-looking brute laughed. Good, good. I like people with guts. You can withstand this torture, but what about them? I'd like to see if everyone is as tough as you are. He looked towards the second person, asking the same question as before. The reply was another glob of bloody spit. Once again, the whip lashed out, sending the disciple from the Haika family spinning into the air. He landed heavily on the ground and stayed there for a long while. Following this, he turned towards the third person, furious to the extreme. He roared, "Make this easy for yourself and give it up, or else you'll get what's coming to you." The third Haika family disciple raised his head and looked him in the eye, expression cold. He had the lowest cultivation out of everyone here, a mere first-order saint. With his Saint Chi sealed, a single strike from the whip could mean half a month in bed. Yufeng opened his mouth as if wanting to say something, but the disciple cut him off. "Don't worry, Brother Feng. We haven't spent that much time at Dragon Cave Mountain, but we have all received great benefits. We won't be ungrateful traders. To hell with Shadow Moon Hall. Have they got the means to improve the cultivation of so many people by 1 or 2 minor realms in such a short period of time?" Exactly. Yufeng felt a swell of pride and nodded. The disciple was right. The 50 or so Haiko family disciples who separated from the family under the leadership of Wu Yi to join the Dragon Cave Mountain had no worries regarding cultivation resources these past 2 to 3 years. They were given an endless supply of various pills and medications, and each received at least 1 or 2 artifacts, all of which were Saint King grade. This was infinitely better than what they could have gotten back in the Haiko family. It can be said that every Haiko family disciple had recognized Dragon Cave Mountain as their home, resulting in a strong sense of belonging. By now, the brute understood that he was wasting his breath with these questions, and simply raised the whip. Just as he was about to unleash a strike, the old man on the chair suddenly opened his half-closed eyes and turned to look outside. Boom! A loud noise was accompanied by several violent pulses of Saint Chi. There appeared to be a fight going on outside, but everything died down after a few cries of shock and agony. Who dares trespass the gathering source hall? The old man's expression stiffened as he rose from his seat and turned to head out. However, he let out a strange cry midair, flying backwards as if he had suffered a serious injury. A burst of white light followed after him, landing in the room and heading towards the old man with a tremendous aura. Shocked, the old man immediately took out a defensive artifact in the shape of a small shield, placing it in front of himself. A huge blast rang out, causing the old man to stumble back several steps before he was able to disperse the immense force. Looking down at his shield, he couldn't help but wince. A small flicker of jet-black flame was burning on this low-rank origin-grade artifact, and its blazing heat was starting to cause the shield to melt. This sight frightened him greatly. Had he touched this flame just now, he would have suffered a fatal injury even if he didn't outright die. Before he could react, 2 gusts of Shur descended from the sky, enveloping the whole room. He raised his head and saw the imposing figure of a youth clad in a chilling aura entering the room. Behind the youth were 2 old people, both who were first-order origin returning cultivators. The 2 gusts of Shur from earlier were clearly their doing. The old man's eyes widened, knowing that the situation had become unfavorable for him. As a lone first-order origin returning cultivator, there was no way he could handle 2 other cultivators of the same realm by himself. Realizing this, he immediately took out an item from his space ring and crushed it, secretly breathing a sigh of relief as he successfully did so. Yang Kai, Foreign Elder Chong, Foreign Elder Hao. Yufeng and the rest exclaimed in joy when they saw the intruders. Yang Kai took a quick look across the room, eyes narrowing as he saw the grievous injuries on several of the detained individuals. Murderous intent welled up within him. He could tell how serious the injuries were, and how they had caused their vitalities to deplete almost to the extent of damaging their foundations. Right now, a few pills and a few days of recuperation could still heal them, but had he come out of seclusion a day or 2 later, their cultivations would undoubtedly have fallen. "You're Yang Kai?" The old man stared at him in shock after hearing their words. Yang Kai glanced at him, showing no interest in answering his question. Instead, he signaled towards Chang Chi. Chang Chi immediately walked up, condensing Saint Chi onto his fingertips like knives, cutting Yufeng and the rest out of their bondage. He then checked the restrictive barrier that was placed within their bodies and furrowed his brows. Although this was merely the work of a fellow First-Order Origin returning cultivator, it would still take him 2 to 4 hours to undo it. Now was clearly not the best time for that. He brought Yufeng and the rest back to Yang Kai's side, and communicated the situation to him in a hushed voice before standing down. Yang Kai nodded, then looked towards the old man. Narrowing his eyes, he said, "You sound like you already know me?" "Humph. So what?" The old man grunted. Yang Kai smirked, then asked, "Is your surname Xie?" The old man's expression changed immediately to one of extreme shock. "How do you know?" "I knew it." Yang Kai nodded, a look of understanding spreading across his face. He had guessed it earlier when talking with Wu Yi and the rest about the situation. If there really was internal strife in Shadow Moon Hall, the Dragon Cave Mountain shouldn't have been affected to this much of an extent. After all, Dragon Cave Mountain was a major customer, meaning that there's nothing but benefit in cooperating with them. No one would make an enemy of them without any reason like this. Yang Kai instinctively felt that anyone who would stand against Dragon Cave Mountain so brazenly must be someone with a grievance against him. That, together with the criteria of being related to Shadow Moon Hall, narrowed the choices down to a single one, the Xie family. Xie Hongwen had been a disciple of Shadow Moon Hall, while his father, Xie Li, was a deacon. His status was not as high as Qian Tong, but it did give him some degree of power. The Xie family was a faction independent from Shadow Moon Hall, but these two definitely shared some connections. As for why they would antagonize Yang Kai, there were 2 reasons. Firstly, out of suspicion that Xie Hongwen's death had something to do with him. After all, Xie Hongwen died in the Flowing Flame Sand field after a Shadow Moon Hall disciple told him about Yang Kai's location there, which was enough for the Xie family to believe that Yang Kai had something to do with his death. They probably refrained from causing Yang Kai trouble so far because they were apprehensive of Qian Tong and that origin-grade artifact refiner. Secondly, they probably wanted to take this chance to test the waters with Qian Tong. If Qian Tong still had the time to look after Dragon Cave Mountain, he would have long since done so. It would, therefore, seem that he wasn't in a favorable situation either. Yang Kai quickly deduced the possible state of affairs based on his own assumptions. Even though he couldn't be completely certain whether that was the truth just yet, it shouldn't be far off. He just had to ask around a little afterwards to make sure. Suddenly, Yang Kai's mood improved slightly. As long as it wasn't Qian Tong acting against him, it was fine. Moreover, since the Xie family was the main mastermind, it must mean that the strife in Shadow Moon Hall was quite serious. Not only was Qian Tong occupied, but his opponent also didn't have the time to care about this either. In that case, Yang Kai had no more concerns. The current Dragon Cave Mountain had no problem handling a mere Xie family. If they came at him, he would give them a reason to be sorry. "I am Xie Quan." The old man realized his slip-up and stopped trying to hide it altogether. He laughed coldly. "You're quite bold for daring to destroy the Gathering Source Hall even after knowing that I'm from the Xie family." "Xie family?" Yang Kai laughed for a while. Stroking his chin, he asked Yufeng, "Who beat you up?" Yufeng looked stunned for a while, before pointing at the brute behind Xie Quan. Yang Kai nodded, face twisting into a rage. He flicked his wrist, sending a thin golden thread flying straight at the brute. Xie Quan's expression changed, and he exclaimed, "How insolent!" At the same time, a wave of Shi burst from his body, and he sent several bursts of energy towards the golden thread with flicks of his fingers. He thought that it would be easy to disperse the attack of a third-order Saint King. In fact, releasing his Shi was beyond necessary. However, his eyes grew wide in shock the next moment. The golden thread tore his Shi to shreds, nullifying the bursts of energy completely. That's when he understood that he had underestimated his opponent. He hurriedly took out an artifact in the shape of a top. As it spun, wave after wave of light rays shot out from it, forming a protective layer in front of the brute in the blink of an eye. As an origin-returning cultivator, it would be too shameful to allow Xianxia to capture someone right in front of him. However, yet another shocking scene unfolded. The protective shield was not able to stop the advance of the golden thread, shattering to pieces as it made contact. In the next moment, the brute shouted in surprise as he was pulled towards Xianxia with immense force. "Put him down!" Xiaquan's face was fuming red. Channeling the Saint Qi within his body, he struck his palm towards Xianxia, materializing a gigantic palm print in the process, as if trying to flatten Xianxia completely. Xianxia laughed coldly and pushed his own palm forward. Another gigantic palm print materialized, meeting Xiaquan's own head on. Not only did it swallow Xiaquan's palm print entirely, it advanced towards Xiaquan with an intensity that seemed to cover heaven and earth. Xiaquan's eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. Never had he thought that a third-order Saint King could face him head-on, not to mention gain the upper hand in the process. In a flash, the brute had been captured and brought to Xianxia's side, his eyes wide in an expression of horror. As a third-order Saint King, it was terrifying how powerless he was in front of this youth who was at the same cultivation level as him. Only now did he remember to try and resist, but just as he was gathering up his Saint Qi, Xianxia tapped lightly on his shoulder, causing the brute to turn pale and let out a grunt, the energy he was trying to summon dispersing all over again. Following that, Xianxia sent him flying in front of Yufeng and the rest with a single kick. He grabbed the whip from him and threw it over to Yufeng, speaking coldly, "Take revenge for your grudges." Yufeng caught the thick whip, looking stunned for a moment before regaining his bearings. He exchanged a glance with the fellow detainees who had been beaten and surrounded the brute while grinning maliciously. The next moment, the brute's pitiful cries of pain rang out amidst the sounds of kicks and punches and the cracks of the whip. Xiaquan's face was dark with anger while eyes shining with a fierce glow, as if looking for prey to release his anger upon. He looked at Xianxia. "Youths are reckless indeed. Good. I shall see how long you can maintain that arrogance." As he said that, he waved his hand. All of a sudden, numerous figures started appearing from all around the place. There were at least several dozen of them, and they surrounded the now decimated gathering source hall, glaring at Xianxia's group with animosity. Although there were no origin-returning realm cultivators amidst the group, the large number was enough to cause Changqi and Haowen to feel uneasy. Not only that, but many people from all around Heavenly Fate City were starting to fly towards them, and there was no lack of origin-returning cultivators amongst those. In a mere moment, the situation had flipped. Where Xianxia's side originally had a slight advantage, it was now completely lost in terms of both numbers and cultivation. Changqi scanned his surroundings, his expression growing somber as he did. There were 7 to 8 origin-returning cultivators here, and they were all reinforcements Xiaquan had called. Reinforcements were within expectations. After all, they were heading deep into the enemy camp with this trip, and it would be impossible to expect there to be no backup. However, the scale of it was completely unexpected. He stole a glance at Xianxia, only to find him looking calm and composed as always. This surprised Changqi a little but also gave him a bit of confidence. Surely, Xianxia had some kind of trump card hidden away. "Brother Xie, is this the brat who destroyed the gathering source hall?" One of the newcomers was an old man sporting a goatee, and he asked this question coldly while staring at Xianxia after exchanging quick greetings with Xiaquan. Xiaquan made a fist-palm salute, saying, "Regretfully so. I didn't expect there to be 2 origin-returning cultivators with him, and I alone was no match and could not protect this place. I will apologize to Shadow Moon Hall after this." The goateed old man laughed and waved his hand in dismissal. "Don't take this too seriously, Brother Xie. With such a grand scale of the enterprise, our Shadow Moon Hall wouldn't care so much about the destruction of a mere gathering source hall. More importantly, your junior looks to be in quite the predicament." He shifted his gaze towards the group who was still beating up the brute. Speaking sharply and coldly, he said, "Are you not being too contemptuous by continuing with your acts of violence even after we have arrived? This old master is asking you to stop." With that, a spark of light flashed across his eyes, and an imposing gust of spiritual energy descended from the heavens towards Yufeng's group. At the same time, Changqi smirked and channeled out his own spiritual energy, causing the two gusts to clash midair and disperse silently. As a fellow First-Order Origin returning cultivator, he would obviously have no fear of meeting the attack, and this particular clash hence ended in a draw. Yufeng and the rest couldn't help but stop, and they collectively looked towards Yang Kai. This was the first time they had been surrounded by so many Origin returning cultivators, and it was making them anxious. Go on. Don't stop until you feel like the grudge has been completely settled. Yang Kai glanced nonchalantly at the numerous Origin returning cultivators, the condescending look in his eyes eliciting widespread displeasure from them. The goateed old man was about to say something, but Yang Kai interrupted him. You're from the Shadow Moon Hall? That's right. The old man stroked his beard. This old master, Maixenuan, is a lower manager of Shadow Moon Hall. Lower manager. Yang Kai narrowed his eyes, the edges of his mouth rising in mockery. May I ask where Elder Qian Tong is right now? Elder Qian. Maixenuan's expression changed slightly, as if he were slightly apprehensive. This reaction was shared by most of the Origin returning cultivators gathered around. Seeing this, Yang Kai immediately realized that this group of cultivators were not under Qian Tong. They were probably on opposing sides within Shadow Moon Hall. Otherwise, they would not have shown such expressions. Looks like his prior deductions regarding the situation have been quite accurate. Elder Qian is naturally standing guard within Shadow Moon Hall. Listen up, brat. Not only did you destroy the Gathering Source Hall, you also injured our men. Don't think that you can get away with this just by saying that you know Elder Qian. You're not getting away today no matter what, a middle-aged man towards the right exclaimed. Yang Kai glanced at him and laughed lightly. Of course I will not leave until the matter is settled. I came here today for 2 reasons. He pointed towards Yufeng and the rest as he spoke. To bring them back, and collect the resources you owe us while I'm at it. The numerous Origin returning cultivators looked at one another, seeing the amusement in each other's eyes. A few of them couldn't help but laugh out loud, mocking Yang Kai's inability to understand the extent of his own powers. Xiaquan smirked at Yang Kai. Such arrogance. Did you say you were going to bring them back? Have you asked whether this master agrees to that? If you dare disagree, I will beat you until you change your mind, Yang Kai exclaimed as he pointed his hand out. An artifact resembling an artifact refining furnace appeared out of thin air, causing the temperature within a 1,000-meter radius to rise rapidly. It caused everyone to feel as if they had suddenly fallen into a sea of fire, and even the air was being distorted due to the heat. The next moment, a sharp shriek sounded out from within the furnace, and a 10-meter-long firebird of bright scarlet flew out. As it spread its wings, all the fire attribute world energy in the heavenly fate city seemed to be pulled towards it, gathering within its body. No one could have expected Yang Kai to be so daring as to make the first move even under such a clearly disadvantageous situation. It was only after the firebird absorbed the world energy, growing to a massive size of over 30 meters, and starting to cover up the sky that the group of Origin returning cultivators began to regain their senses. Xiaquan, in particular, was staring at the firebird with shaking eyes, exclaiming in shock, "Artifact spirit! It's an artifact spirit!" No sooner had he finished speaking, that the firebird spit a fireball the size of a washbasin at him. The artifact spirit firebird had awoken a month ago, which was one of the better pieces of news during the period of Yang Kai's seclusion. After absorbing a strand of Sun's true fire, not only did it become more sapient, its strength increased drastically as well. At the very least, the power of its flames was 30% stronger than when Yang Kai first obtained it. Xiaquan's face drained of all color as he stared at the fireball approaching with an earth-crushing force. Completely tense against the imminent threat of death, he hurriedly took out his defensive artifact in hopes of mitigating the impact, at the same time turning and running away as quickly as possible. Boom! With a loud explosion, the fireball crashed down. The defensive artifact was not even able to hold for a single second before becoming badly damaged, losing all its luster. A large pit appeared on the ground, the edges of which still showed signs of melting. This artifact spirit is fierce. Everyone, attack it together. Xiaquan knew immediately that he would be no match for the artifact spirit. Hearing this, the other origin returning cultivators all took out their artifacts, preparing to gang up on the Firebird. Everyone had a glint of excitement in their eyes, and no one bothered to direct any more attention towards Yang Kai. In their eyes, the only reason why Yang Kai would so fearlessly go on the offensive was due to this artifact spirit. As long as they subdue it, what was a single third-order Saint King to them? Furthermore, subduing this artifact spirit would benefit them greatly. In front of such a precious treasure, who had the time to care about Yang Kai? Seeing that, Yang Kai laughed coldly and, with a wave of both hands, sent blasts of black fireballs shooting in all directions, causing the rest of the cultivators to fall all over the place. Where the demonic flames passed, everything ignited spontaneously. The ones with quicker reactions were able to scatter, while the ones who were too slow were swallowed whole by the flames, not a single bone remaining of them. In an instant, this region of Heavenly Fate City had turned into a sea of fire, the intensity of the blaze threatening to burn a hole in the very heavens. "Run!" Yang Kai shouted towards Changqi and Haowen. The two of them took out their star shuttles, immediately dragging Yufeng and the rest onto them. Mobilizing their Saint Qi, they headed straight out of Heavenly Fate City with the ex-detainees in tow. Stop them! How could that goateed old man called Ma Xanyuan allow them to escape from right under his eyes? With a single flash of the long sword held in his hand, he sent several bursts of sword waves towards Changqi and Hao Ao. Yang Kai laughed coldly, immediately bringing out his purple shield and injecting Saint Qi into it. A gust of sandstorm immediately encased Changqi and the rest within it, protecting them. At the same time, Yang Kai sent out a hasty message to Changqi. Changqi stared back for a moment before flying forward again at full speed, disappearing together with Haowen, Yufeng, and the rest of the disciples. The only one left on the ground was the brute who whipped them earlier, now howling in pain. He was mutilated beyond recognition and looked wretched to the extreme. Yang Kai flicked a single burst of demonic flame at him with a single finger, causing him to burn away without a trace from the world. Yang Kai was not going to be merciful to someone from the Xie family. "Little brat! How dare you kill a disciple of the Xie family?" Xiaquan raged when he saw Yang Kai kill the brute. "So what if I did? What can you do?" Yang Kai's expression was one of ferocity. The demonic flame shrouded his body, making it look like a savage god descended from the heavens, thirsting for blood. As he spoke, he fired a strand of Saint Qi into the Origin King grade artifact refining furnace floating in the air, causing it to start spinning. As it spun, bursts of flames emerged one after another, transforming into the shape of firebirds and shooting out. Those firebirds were like miniature versions of the artifact spirit, looking very much the same, other than the smaller size and lower power. This was the fire attribute world energy stored within the Origin King grade artifact refining furnace itself. After spending tens of thousands of years burning within the earth lung fire pond, it was no ordinary item. Usually, Yang Kai only needed to release the artifact spirit in order to deal with his enemies, but against so many Origin returning realm masters, he didn't dare to be careless, opting to invoke the force of the furnace as well. The artifact spirit firebird spread both wings, causing countless fireballs to form and swarm towards the enemies like a cloud of locusts. The combination of the two caused the many Origin returning realm masters to scramble in fear. The already blazing Heavenly Fate City suffered even greater losses from this. All the houses and shops within a 1,000-meter radius turned to ashes, leaving a seared, pitch-black wasteland where they once stood. 10 or so cultivators were too slow to avoid the attack and died on the spot. Several gusts of Shur descended from the heavens, and Xiaquan exclaimed in fury, "Little brat! Now that those two old farts are gone, let's see how a mere Saint King like you can escape." The pressure from more than 10 layers of Shur stacked together caused Yang Kai to feel like he was completely unable to move. In response, 2 strands of golden thread shot out, furiously cutting away the formless Shur, causing their strength to decrease drastically. With that, Yang Kai took another step forward, his body suddenly blurring away, causing all of the origin returning cultivators to be unable to perceive where he went. He was invoking the Space Force. Although this was not directly tearing space, it was enough to free him from the usual restrictions of space. When he next appeared, he was already behind Xiaquan. "Brother Xie, watch out!" No sooner had Yang Kai appeared than the goateed old man shouted. Xiaquan similarly realized this, his expression changing to shock. A layer of white mist suddenly emerged from his body, wrapping around him and concealing his figure. Yang Kai snorted in disdain, letting a single strand of golden thread fly out and wrap around the white mist. A small bursting sound rang out, followed by Xiaquan's scream. The layer of white mist condensed, then spontaneously erupted, causing his figure to appear once again. When the crowd registered the scene before them, they gasped in shock. Xiaquan was standing at his original position, his face ashen. He stared blankly at the single strand of golden threaded passing right through his chest, shock written all over his expression. His eyes were filled with apprehension, and he did not dare move even a finger. The other end of the golden thread was wrapped around Yang Kai's finger. He was so easily subdued by Yang Kai. Not only was it unexpected to the rest, but even Xiaquan himself did not imagine that he would fall so easily. All he knew was that the golden thread had mysterious properties and was sharp beyond measure. The Saint Chi protecting his body could not block it at all, or else he would not have been pierced by it so easily. A sharp shriek came from overhead once again, and the gigantic artifact spirit Firebird moved to hover over Yang Kai's head, its eyes scanning the area around it. Every origin returning realm cultivator who met its gaze turned white in fear. Though their fight with it had not been long, everyone had realized how scary it was. One-on-one, not a single one of them was a match for it, and even if they teamed up, it was impossible to subjugate it. Even if this artifact spirit was not as strong as a third-order origin returning realm, it was close. "Move and you die." Yang Kai's voice sounded to Xiaquan like the cold wind blowing from the ninth pit of hell, sending a shiver down his spine. Seeing that Xiaquan was obeying his instructions and standing there quietly, a look of satisfaction flashed across Yang Kai's face. He then turned to the other origin returning realm cultivators and said, "I told you I came here for two things. The first is done, now the second." "What do you want?" Xiaquan said bitterly. "Return all of the saint crystals that you took from my dragon cave mountain." Yang Kai said coldly, "Your saint crystals are in my space ring. Take it if you want." Xiaquan said through clenched teeth. He had no choice but to obey Yang Kai right now. Yang Kai glanced at his finger and sent the other golden thread out. It wrapped around Xiaquan's finger, and in the next moment, both the ring and his finger landed onto Yang Kai's palm. Fresh blood spurted out, but Xiaquan could only clench his teeth and bear with the pain, not daring to make a single move. Yang Kai scanned the contents of the ring with his divine sense, a smirk forming on his face. "Isn't the quantity a little low?" Not just a little, half of it was gone. The materials that Dragon Cave Mountain had ordered from Shadow Moon Hall this time around were worth 20 million Saint Crystals. Yet only 10 million could be found within the ring, with the rest nowhere to be found. Xiaquan remained silent, but he glanced towards the goateed old man Xianxia. Immediately, Yang Kai understood that they had already split the Saint Crystals that Yufeng had brought, and the remaining half was probably on him. He stared coldly towards Xianxia. Xianxia's face was one of hesitation and unwillingness. Obviously, he wasn't too happy to simply give up the profits he had just obtained. A whole 10 million Saint Crystals. If it weren't for this, why would Shadow Moon Hall assist the Xie family in fighting against Yang Kai? Especially when the internal strife had gotten so heated that very few people could be sent out to deal with external affairs. Seeing how he looked like he didn't want to hand the Saint Crystals over, Yang Kai's expression hardened, the second golden thread flying out once again and wrapping around Xiaquan's shoulder. Bathed in blood, Xiaquan's arm fell to the ground. Everyone paled immediately, looking at Yang Kai in disbelief, not expecting him to be so ruthless as to inflict such a grievous injury without saying a single word. Xiaquan had the tenacity to stay silent, at least. He didn't make a single noise when his finger was cut off earlier, and similarly not when this whole arm was chopped off. All he did was to turn towards Ma Xianyuan in anger, his dry lips cracking as he exclaimed, "Brother Ma, are you simply going to watch as I get dissected by this little brat?" At this point, Ma Xianyuan knew that he could no longer keep the Saint Crystals for himself. The Xia family still had Xieli within the Shadow Moon Hall, whose position was even higher than his own. If he really allowed Xia Quan to die at the hands of Yang Kai, Xieli would definitely come for him. Clenching his teeth, he took the space ring off of his finger, taking out his personal belongings and throwing it over to Yang Kai as he spoke vehemently. "Little brat, the rest of the Saint Crystals are all in there. Now release him, unless you want to fight to the death." They initially thought that they had everything in control, only to have the entire plan come undone by the artifact spirit. Even this little brat called Yang Kai was extremely strange. Up until now, Ma Xianyuan still hadn't figured out how he was able to attack Xia Quan and subdue him. While cursing Xia Quan's carelessness, he was also starting to feel a little apprehension towards Yang Kai. If he was able to subdue Xia Quan just like that, there's a chance that he might be able to kill him. After all, he wasn't much stronger than Xia Quan. Is he really a third-order Saint King? Ma Xianyuan had strong suspicions that Yang Kai was hiding his cultivation. Looking at how relaxed he was, it was clear that he still hadn't played all his cards. Catching the ring that Ma Xianyuan threw over, Yang Kai did a quick check to make sure he didn't lie, before nodding and keeping both rings. He ignored Ma Xianyuan's threat entirely, instead saying, "Now that I have the Saint Crystals back let's settle the other grudge." "What is there to settle?" Ma Xianyuan's expression darkened. "Don't play dumb with me?" Yang Kai snickered. "Detaining the disciples of Dragon Cave Mountain, even going as far as to whip them, after causing them such injuries. Did you think I was going to let this go?" "Injuries?" Ma Xianyuan roared in anger. "If that's the case, what about all these shops you destroyed? The disciples you killed? Should I settle things with you as well? That's your own fault. Our Dragon Cave Mountain has been fairly trading with you these past 2 years, never lagging behind on Saint Crystal payments, and yet you abuse our trust in such a way. Just try getting the word out. No one will side with you." "All right then. State your terms." Ma Xianyuan seethed. "Pay up." Yang Kai went straight to the point. "If not, let's see if you are prepared to face the consequences." "Are you threatening this old master, you little brat?" Ma Xianyuan shouted. "Yes." Yang Kai narrowed his eyes at him. "I'll count to 3. Disagree, and negotiations are over. 1. Seeing how unrelenting Yang Kai was, to the point that he was actually starting to count, all the origin returning realm cultivators' expressions turned cold, a sense of helplessness arising despite their anger. Originally, they thought that their forces were more than enough to take down Dragon Cave Mountain, but things soon got out of hand. 2. When this number sounded out, Xia Quan started yelling urgently, "Brother Ma." Ma Xianyuan looked at him from afar, an ambiguous expression flashing across his face as he said, "Brother Xia, it was a disciple of your Xia family who caught and injured them, right? This doesn't have much to do with Shadow Moon Hall? Don't you agree?" Xia Quan looked stunned, then immediately felt a pang of anguish. While Ma Xianyuan was technically correct in that the main perpetrators who engineered this episode against Dragon Cave Mountain were the Xia family, the way he was shifting all the blame was still too hurtful. After all, they only proceeded with the plan after receiving orders to take the opportunity to test Qian Tong's response. Either way, Ma Xianyuan shouldn't be trying to distance himself completely from this affair. 3. Yang Kai grinned after reaching the last number. "Looks like you're not willing to pay up. Well then, allow me to collect it myself." As he said that, the golden thread on his hand trembled slightly, and amidst the golden radiance that seems to fill the skies, Xia Quan turned into a pile of mincemeat. As the smell of blood wafted out, all the origin returning realm cultivators stared in shock. Nobody expected Yang Kai to kill Xia Quan. The origin returning realm masters had not dared to act carelessly just now for 2 reasons. Firstly, there was the threat of the artifact spirit Firebird. Secondly, Xia Quan had been subdued by Yang Kai. They acted cautiously out of fear that Xianxia might kill Xiequan out of anger. After all, everyone had seen how brutal Xianxia was. If Xiequan really died here, it would become a problem with Xieli later on. But now, this was no longer a concern, and ironically, Xianxia was the one who removed the concern for them. This was not just unexpected. It was infuriating as well. Only now did they realize that they had completely underestimated this youth's madness and insolence. Without Xiequan as a hostage, did he really think that he was a match for so many origin-returning realm masters? The thought of Xieli's anger when he learned of the deaths of Xiequan and the Xie family disciples further agitated the crowd. Xian Yuan pointed several times at Xianxia, seemingly too enraged to speak. After a long while, he finally spoke through clenched teeth. "You're dead, brat. You're really dead. Brother Ma, stop wasting your breath with him. Let's just capture him and bring him to Manager Xie." Someone spoke coldly from aside. "You think you can?" Xianxia laughed boldly. If Changqi and the rest were still here, he might have some trouble, but now that he was the only one left, not even a third-order origin-returning realm would be able to stop him. Having cultivated Space Force, he could escape by tearing space any time. The situation this time was nothing like that time in the Corpse Cave, where he not only had to bring Yang Yen with him but also face off an opponent on the level of a 1,000-year Corpse General. There were only 7 or 8 first-order origin-returning realm cultivators here. They would be dreaming if they thought that they could capture Xianxia. "Let me turn Heavenly Fate City upside down before I settle my grudges with you." Xianxia's voice suddenly grew cold, raising his hand and commanding, "Burn it!" The artifact spirit bird raised its head towards the sky and let out a long shriek when it received the command. The flames on its body blazed, and the fire attribute world energy started converging onto it once again. In a flash, it had become even larger. Seeing this, the origin-returning realm cultivators turned pale, hastily covering their bodies with Saint Qi and summoning their own defensive artifacts in order to protect themselves. The firebird opened its mouth wide, a huge ball of light forming within. After a moment, the ball turned into a beam of fire that burst out with frightening force, its temperature almost high enough to melt space itself. The target of the attack was not any cultivator, but the largest store in the vicinity. Xianxia was actually planning on turning the entire Heavenly Fate City upside down. Given how badly the people of Dragon Cave Mountain had been bullied, there was no way he could back down. Doing so would only leave an impression of weakness, making them the prime choice as a target in the future. After all, this could be considered Dragon Cave Mountain's first fight since its establishment. Before the beam of fire reached the store, the latter had already been set ablaze by the high temperatures. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from far away, reaching the store before the fire, causing a thin layer of energy to surround the building. This was the defensive barrier of the store, which can be considered a kind of spirit array. All of the larger stores in Heavenly Fate City had this, but the strength of the barrier depended on the profits of the store in question. The barrier of this particular store clearly wasn't weak. It was emitting a light green glow like ripples of water, obviously a work of intricate design. Even so, when the fire came into contact with the barrier, it shook and broke apart almost immediately. The green glow dimmed quickly, and it didn't even last a few seconds before shattering into pieces. The remaining fire roared straight down towards the shop. Suddenly, an artifact looking like a round bowl appeared, growing to a size of several dozens of meters in midair and intercepting the fire right above the shop. Unable to change its course, the fire shot right into the bowl. Following this, a flash of blue light shone out from within the bowl, rounding the fire into a ball and suppressing it within. A middle-aged man dressed like a scholar then appeared above the round bowl, his expression somber to the extreme. He shot several bursts of Saint Qi towards the round bowl, and with the activation of his divine sense, the bowl quickly shrank to its original size. With a wave of his hand, the middle-aged scholar summoned the round bowl back to his palm, staring at the fire raging within with a disturbed expression. "You've finally shown yourself," Xianxia snorted coldly. He did not make any further moves, instead choosing to stand there and glare at the middle-aged scholar. He had sensed the scholar's presence the moment he stepped foot into Heavenly Fate City. After all, the scholar had the cultivation of third-order origin returning realm. Other than him, there was no one else in the entire Heavenly Fate City whom Xianxia was apprehensive about. Otherwise, he would not have acted so fearlessly before. The only thing he could not understand was how the scholar did not seem to have any intention of showing himself despite everything that Xianxia was doing. However, Xianxia had kept track of him, and now that the store was almost going to be destroyed, the scholar finally could not bear to stay hidden any longer. Xianxia did not yet know whether he was friend or foe, but he instinctively felt that he did not mean any harm, or else he would have come out long ago. Blue Jade Bowl. City Lord Fei. The exclamations of the first-order origin returning realm cultivators gave away the identity of the scholar. The City Lord of Heavenly Fate City, Fei Ji2. Although Xianxia has never interacted with him before, he had heard of his name. Back when he was having a conflict with the Haiku and Su families, the two families once went to the City Lord's mansion to ask for help. While they were not able to meet Fei Ji2 in the end, Patriarch En from the Haiku family bumped into Xiahong when there and managed to drag him into the conflict. Xianxia only knew him from Wu Yi's introductions, and even then he didn't know that he was a third-order origin returning realm. Looking at him, Xianxia finally felt a sense of apprehension. The Blue Jade Bowl, being able to contain the attack of the Firebird, was clearly of a rather high grade, and he, himself, had an unbelievably deep aura comparable to that of Qian Tong's. Just because he had the ability to act as he wanted under the eyes of 7 to 8 first-order origin returning realm cultivators didn't mean that he could do the same before a third-order origin returning realm master. However, he also didn't have any plans to retreat before confirming the standpoint of the scholar. There were still trump cards that he had not yet played, such as the Space Blade and the Blossoming Lotus secret technique. The crowd's expression changed slightly when they recognized Fei Ji2, and immediately stepped forward to pay their respects. Ma Xianyuan said, "City Lord, sir, I heard that you were cultivating a secret technique in retreat. Does this mean that you have succeeded?" Fei Ji2 took a slow look at him, replying, "Why? Is Steward Ma interested in the secret technique of this City Lord?" No, it was just a random question." Ma Xianyuan flinched and decided to stop talking. Humph. Fei Ji2 looked at the first-order origin returning realm cultivators one by one, speaking in slight mockery. "If this City Lord had not appeared, were you planning on taking apart this entire Heavenly Fate City?" "We apologize, City Lord." The crowd cupped their hands and responded immediately after hearing that. One of them stepped forward to explain, "There's a reason for all of this. It is not our fault that the stores ended up in this state, but that insolent brat's reckless actions that caused this. We ask you to be fair in your judgments, City Lord, sir." He pointed towards Xianxia. Fei Ji2 turned to look at Xianxia. While he was somewhat surprised at the fact that Xianxia met his gaze without fear, he did not show it, instead scolding, "What a bunch of useless garbage. You call yourselves origin-returning realm cultivators when you can't even handle a single Saint King realm brat? I can't believe you've still got the face to be here. Even dogs can do better than you." The 7 or 8 origin returning realm cultivators all lowered their heads without saying a single word, a feeling of indignation growing in their hearts. After scolding them, Fei Ji2 finally turned to Xianxia and laughed dryly. "And aren't you a brave little brat? Daring to wreak all this havoc in the Heavenly Fate City as if I didn't exist. Please understand, Senior. I was only forced to engage in a little bit of self-defense because this group of dishonest people were bullying me." Xianxia replied indifferently. "A little bit of self-defense?" Fei Ji2's face twitched slightly. He had seen the whole exchange while he was in hiding. It was not so much self-defense as it was Xianxia toying with the origin-returning realm cultivators. "What a shameless brat," he thought, lying with a straight face. "I heard you saying that you wanted to turn Heavenly Fate City upside down?" Xianxia cringed. "That was merely a bad choice of words due to all the anger I was feeling just now. Surely you are too magnanimous of a person to take it seriously. Right, sir?" Fei Ji2 took a deep breath, laughing coldly. "I don't care if it was just a bad choice of words. What's said is said. Either you actually turn Heavenly Fate City upside down today, or you accept a punishment. Otherwise, you won't be leaving this place that easily." Hearing that, Yang Kai's expression hardened. After a moment's thought, he smiled. "If that's the case, then I shall be so bold as to ask for your instructions. With such a high cultivation master here, he certainly wouldn't be able to keep causing trouble." However, from the implied message within Fei Jitu's words, it seemed that he wasn't exactly an enemy. The other origin returning realm cultivators weren't idiots either, and they clearly understood Fei Jitu's unspoken message. The city lord was trying to call a truce with Yang Kai. Ma Xian Yuan's heart jumped at the thought, and he was just about to speak up when Fei Jitu said, "You've killed quite a few people and burned a number of shops. Even if the Shadow Moon Hall was in the wrong, this should be more than enough revenge for you. Originally, things would end here, but if word got out that I let you off just like this, people will assume that this city lord is but a mere coward." "I understand." Yang Kai nodded. Seeing how collaborative Yang Kai was being, Fei Jitu showed a look of approval. When observing the little brat earlier, he had thought Yang Kai was an utterly lawless rebel, but as it turned out, he was quite the perceptive fellow, so his efforts did not go to waste. Even though many stores in the city were indeed burned down, those were ultimately replaceable and could be easily reconstructed afterwards. As for the people who died, most were disciples of the Xia family, who didn't have much to do with Fei Jitu. In fact, even if everybody here died, it didn't really matter much to him. After a moment of thought, Fei Jitu said, "I shall give you two choices. You pick one." Yang Kai immediately started acting as if he were listening attentively. "1. Use the saint crystals you obtained just now as reimbursement. I can't simply let you go after all that destruction, but those saint crystals should be enough as a fine. What do you say?" Upon hearing this, the expressions of the goateed old man and the rest immediately changed. Their worry was real, and City Lord Fei was indeed intending to let Yang Kai off lightly. Remembering the rumors that were going around the hall, they seemed to understand something, and nobody dared to speak. Yang Kai looked stunned for a moment, then tilted his head in thought for a while before replying with a confident smile. "That is a great suggestion, Senior, but I'm afraid I would like to reject it." Fei Jitu narrowed his eyes, staring at Yang Kai in surprise. Honestly speaking, the only reason he would make such a suggestion was that he was the strongest of everyone here, and the city lord on top of that, which meant that Ma Xian Yuan and the rest were unlikely to raise any objections. However, he didn't expect the little brat to reject his goodwill entirely, making him slightly annoyed. While silently berating Yang Kai for not understanding the severity of the situation, he snorted coldly, "You dare reject it even before hearing the other option?" Yang Kai replied seriously, "The reason why I came here today was to take back the saint crystals which were stolen. Now that I have them, there's no way I will give them back. Please tell me what the second choice is, Senior." Fei Jitu stared at him for a long while before saying, "All right then, since you're set on it, this city lord will not attempt to persuade you any further. The second choice is much simpler. Withstand a single move of mine without dodging. As long as you don't die, I shall allow you to leave." Withstand a single move without dodging. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. Contrarily, Ma Xian Yuan and the rest were overjoyed to hear that. Fei Jitu was already at the peak of third-order origin returning realm, his strength almost comparable to Qian Tong's. If he personally attacked, even if it's just a single move, the arrogant brat would most certainly be gravely injured, if not outright dead. As they rejoiced, Ma Xian Yuan and the rest even thought that they had misinterpreted Fei Jitu's intentions. So he didn't plan on letting the little brat leave unharmed. It was only because of the difference in status and cultivation that made it difficult for him to act directly, but now that Yang Kai chose this himself, there was no more contention to be had. They looked towards Yang Kai in glee, waiting for the show to start. "Chicken." Fei Jitu looked towards Yang Kai in mockery. "Why would I be?" Yang Kai's eyes were shining with anticipation. A third-order origin returning realm was too great an opponent for him right now, but a single move shouldn't be too much to withstand. Even if he were to be hurt, it wouldn't take long for him to recover with his current restorative abilities. This was the perfect chance to test the difference between himself and a cultivator of that level. On the shadowed star, the peak of third-order origin returning realm was the highest cultivation. If he could leave unscathed after a clash against Fei Ji2, then he could reevaluate his own strength. "Little brat, you've got balls." Fei Ji2's previously amiable expression suddenly grew fierce. He exclaimed, "I hope you don't regret your choice." Yang Kai remained silent, a look of focus on his face. With a wave of his hand, the firebird hovering above his head let out a shriek and morphed into a ball of flames, shrouding his body completely in what looked like flowing magma, causing the space around him to bend. Yang Kai then summoned his purple shield and poured his Saint Qi into it. The sandstorm formed around him immediately, concealing his figure within. The next moment, a shield formed of pitch-black flames appeared before Yang Kai. This was the grand heavenly shield formed from his own Saint Qi. No sooner were the 3 layers of defense put up before a frightening pulse of Saint Qi radiated out from Fei Ji2's direction. He took a step forward and, without anyone being able to see what happened clearly, appeared directly around 30 meters away from Yang Kai. The roar of a tiger rang out from within his body, and a gigantic tiger head began to form right above his body. At first, it looked to be a mere illusion, but as Fei Ji2 started injecting his Saint Qi into it, it became more and more solid. At the same time, an unparalleled aura of savagery spread out from the tiger head. The onlookers turned pale and backed away hurriedly. Although Fei Ji2 was not directing the attack towards them, the waves of murderous intent spreading out from the tiger head felt like wind blades cutting into their skin, chilling them to the bone. The city lord was serious. Everyone watched on in joy. "Be careful, little brat," Fei Ji2 exclaimed as the tiger head floating above his own suddenly opened its mouth and pounced towards Yang Kai with immense force, much like a real tiger pouncing on its prey. Yang Kai's expression was grave as he mobilized his Saint Qi with all his might. In the next moment, the tiger head came into contact with the grand heavenly shield set up in the outermost layer. A series of loud cracking sounds rang out as the tiger head tore through several dozen layers of the grand heavenly shield like they were papier-mâché as it headed unimpeded towards the second layer of sandstorm. The enormous power of the sandstorm was generated by the force hidden within the purple shield. As the tiger head plunged into it, it slowed all of a sudden, and even seemed to show signs of stopping. However, Yang Kai was shocked rather than elated at this, and his expression grew even graver. Fei Ji2 laughed coldly. Activating his divine sense, the tiger head suddenly shot out a beam of dark light from its mouth, which exploded as soon as it appeared, tearing a gap in the sandstorm. Taking this opportunity, the tiger head pushed forward, and the sandstorm could do nothing to stop it. In the blink of an eye, the gigantic tiger head had advanced all the way to Yang Kai, opening its mouth and biting downwards at Yang Kai. Yang Kai didn't dare be careless, and he immediately willed the defensive barrier which the artifact spirit firebird had morphed into to start rotating, causing it to appear as if his whole body was being set ablaze, radiating an intense heat outwards. The roars of the tiger and shrieks of the bird were unceasing. Ma Xian Yuan and the rest craned their necks in hopes of seeing if Yang Kai was already gravely injured or dead, but their sights were completely obstructed by the sandstorm, and they could only wait anxiously for the result. Nonetheless, a few people were able to infer from Fei Ji2's expression that Yang Kai wasn't suffering any immediate dangers. With a whoosh, the sandstorm suddenly dispersed, converging once again into a shining purple shield as it flew aside. At the same time, Yang Kai's figure backed away from within, his face pale. The artifact spirit firebird which had been shrouding him had already disengaged and was now hovering once again above his head. While the color of the tiger head had dimmed significantly, it was still chasing after Yang Kai, looking like it was still going for the kill. Midair, Yang Kai's expression grew fierce, and with a wave of both of his hands, several pitch-black space blades slashed out, heading towards the tiger head. Seeing this, Fei Ji2 furrowed his brows, then shouted as realization dawned on him, "Stop!" As he spoke, he had already repositioned himself in front of the tiger head, absorbing it back into his body with a wave of one hand, while the other summoned out the blue jade bowl. A beam of blinding blue light shot out and headed towards the space blades. Chi chi chi. The blue light instantly dimmed, causing Fei Ji-tu to show a pained expression. The blue jade bowl was a long-time artifact of his, and one of which he relied upon most. The blue light stored in it harbored some strange qualities, and had been able to save him many times in fights against enemies. However, just now, he clearly felt that some of that light had disappeared, and he couldn't even tell exactly where to. Possibly because of those mysterious blades giving out the pulse of Space Force. He realized as his pained expression grew. The blue light that he had lost would take years for him to replenish, and he would even have to sacrifice some precious treasures for that purpose. At this point in time, he was having serious thoughts about killing Yang Kai. He had not suffered such a loss even against opponents of the same cultivation, not to mention a mere Saint King realm. By the time Fei Ji-tu summoned the blue jade bowl, Yang Kai had already stopped his attacks, retreating to his shield and reclaiming it. He took a few deep breaths, finally restoring some color to his pale face. Only after all this did he look towards Fei Ji-tu with a slightly strange expression on his face. You? Fei Ji-tu looked at his blue jade bowl, then at Yang Kai, his expression twisted to the extreme. Yang Kai merely chuckled. Senior. That's the second move. Fei Ji-tu froze, laughed bitterly, took a long look at Yang Kai, then finally waved his hand in exasperation. Go on, get out. Don't ever step foot within Heavenly Fate City ever again, or I will make you regret it. Thank you for showing mercy, Senior. If possible, I would like to ask Senior to return the ball of fire you absorbed earlier. Yang Kai stared at the blue jade bowl in his hands. Fei Ji-tu's face twitched. He then sent a strand of Saint Qi into the blue jade bowl, and a ball of fire flew out at once. The artifact spirit firebird opened its mouth and sucked the fire in, hovering one last round before disappearing into Yang Kai's body. It wasn't that Fei Ji-tu was being extremely nice, just that he felt that something was off with the ball of fire that had been absorbed. It wasn't something he could refine and, if sealed within the blue jade bowl for too long, could not only affect the artifact's power but also cause damage to it. Compared to that, he was more willing to do Yang Kai a favor. Goodbye. Yang Kai cupped his fists. He took one last long look at Ma Xian Yuan and the rest, as if trying to commit their faces to memory, and let out a cold laugh before summoning his star shuttle and heading off towards the direction of Dragon Cave Mountain. Among the ruins of Heavenly Fate City, Ma Xian Yuan and others stood silently, their faces somber and the atmosphere dignified. They had not expected Yang Kai to really be able to resist one move from Fei Ji-tu and then retreat safely. All of them had witnessed the power behind that move and understood that Fei Ji-tu had not just been putting on a show. None of the Origin Realm Masters present were confident they could have successfully blocked that move, yet a mere third-order Saint King Realm youth had. While Ma Xian Yuan and the others felt shocked, a fear of Yang Kai swept over them. This boy was just a third-order Saint King yet already possessed such strength. So what would happen if he were to break through to the Origin Returning Realm? Everyone on the scene was an old fox, so naturally they understood the truth of strangling danger in its cradle, and after witnessing Yang Kai's cold gaze before he left, none of them doubted he would seek revenge for this when he rose up in the future. After hesitating for a moment, Ma Xian cupped his fists and haltingly asked, Sir City Lord, are you really going to just let him go? If I don't let him go, what do you want me to do? Fei Ji-tu had a stomach full of grievances but nowhere to vent, so he glared coldly the moment Ma Xian Yuan spoke up. But that little brat killed a member of the Xia family? Xia family? Fei Ji-tu coldly snorted. So what? Are you also a member of the Xia family? What do the lives of the Xia family have to do with me? Ma Xian Yuan lowered his head and did not dare say anything more. Humph, if you don't want to let him go, you can chase after him now, as long as you have the confidence to make him remain. Sir City Lord surely jests. The group of people all looked extremely embarrassed, none of them daring to mention Yang Kai again. Since you have no confidence in your own strength, just shut up and stay put. If anyone dares question this city lord's conduct again, do not blame this city lord for not giving any face. In addition, do you really think that old fart Chen Tong really will not come back? Hey, you'd all best pray you've made the right choice today, otherwise, there may be no place for you in Shadow Moon Hall in the future. The group of people all glanced around at each other in dismay, and were about to try to inquire more about the current situation when they saw Fei Zhitu flick his sleeve and fly off. Brother Ma, what should we do? Listening to what City Lord Fei said just now, there seems to be some twists and turns in the battle inside the sect. Perhaps the rumors about Elder Qian aren't. Someone looked at Ma Xianxia and asked, "That's right. Brother Ma, didn't you say this time's matter was foolproof and wouldn't have any repercussions? Why else would we all cooperate with the Xie family against a Saint King Realm Jr. if that wasn't the case?" Someone else chimed in. Ma Xianxuan's expression became ugly and impatient as he shouted, "If you ask this old master, who is this old master supposed to ask? This old master just listened to the people above and followed their instructions. How am I supposed to understand the specific situation? If you really want to know, go try asking Manager Xie and see what answer he can give you." Manager Xie. Listening to Ma Xianxuan's excuses, how could everyone here not know that this time they had been used as pawns? Feeling deeply regretful and remembering Qian Tong's power and ability, all of them went pale, cupped their fists and left quickly. Back at Dragon Cave Mountain, Yang Kai returned with a pale face. As soon as he entered the mountain, he saw Wu Yi, Yang Yan, Chen Yu, and the others standing there waiting for him. When the three women saw him appear, they all greeted him joyfully. "Are you hurt?" Wu Yi saw Yang Kai's complexion and could not help calling out in alarm. "I'm fine. How are you Feng and the others doing?" Yang Kai waved his hand and asked. "They're busy healing, but it shouldn't take long before they recover. If you had not returned just now, Foreign Elder Chong and Foreign Elder Hao would have rushed back to Heavenly Fate City." Yang Kai gently nodded. "Tell them there's no need for that, this time's matter will end here. Shadow Moon Hall shouldn't engage in any kind of harassment anymore, but you should try not to go out during this time and be especially careful of the Xie family. They might try to make a move." "Understood. I'll make sure no one leaves unless absolutely necessary." Wu Yi responded quickly before immediately saying with concern, "You also need to heal your wounds." Yang Kai nodded and walked towards his cave mansion. Fei Zhitu deserved his reputation as a peak third-order origin returning realm master. Although the move he made did not outwardly seem fancy or profound, only Yang Kai, who had taken it head-on, understood how fierce it was. Unfortunately, whether his opponent had used his full strength or not was something Yang Kai could not tell. Needing only a single move to wound him, even without using full strength, it seemed the gap between Yang Kai and the third-order origin returning realm was still too big. Taking a few bottles of pills out from his ring, Yang Kai poured them out and began stuffing them into his mouth before closing his eyes and adjusting his breathing. Fortunately, his injuries were not serious and only his aura was a bit unstable, so after half a day of meditation, Yang Kai had basically completely recovered. His Golden Blood's restorative abilities were as astonishing as ever, so this minor injury was really nothing to Yang Kai. Releasing his divine sense and realizing that it was already late at night, Yang Kai's expression became solemn as he quietly got up, opened the cave mansion's barrier, and stealthily left Dragon Cave Mountain before flying straight to Heavenly Fate City. Soon after, Yang Kai arrived at the city and, following the route in his memory, rushed towards the city lord's mansion. After another cup of tea worth of time, Yang Kai landed outside the city lord's mansion, and although this was his first time here, under the investigation of his divine sense, he was quickly able to grasp the situation here. Tonight, the city lord's mansion seemed a little weird. There were no people around, not even the cultivators who would normally be responsible for patrolling and guarding the perimeter. The city lord's mansion staff did not know what was happening, only that tonight the city lord himself had ordered that everyone was forbidden to move about the compound. Anyone found disobeying this decree would be killed without mercy. Facing this kind of strict order, no one dared to violate the city lord's command. Seemingly having anticipated this, Yang Kai simply walked right through the front entrance of the city lord's mansion. After taking a few turns, he soon arrived at a certain side building inside the city lord's mansion and, just as he stood firm, Fei Zhitu's voice called out, "Since you've arrived, come in and sit down." Hearing this, Yang Kai smiled slightly and pushed the door openly. Inside this building, Fei Zhitu sat on a chair and looked towards the door with a smile. After Yang Kai walked in, he waved his hand lightly, using his Saint Chi to close the door again. Yang Kai's expression remained unchanged as he walked directly to another chair across from Fei Zhitu and sat down calmly. Today I saw you were quite bold, but it seems I still underestimated your courage. Aren't you afraid that after entering the tiger's cave you won't be able to easily leave? Fei Zhitu sneered meaningfully. Senior need not joke. If you really wanted to deal with this junior, there would be no need to go through all this trouble. Taking action directly would have sufficed. Yang Kai replied lightly. Fei Zhitu's eyes flashed brightly, and he nodded. Good. It seems that old fart Qian Tong didn't misread you. A truly impressive youth. May I ask why Senior Fei silently sent this junior a message earlier today, asking me to come here at this time? Yang Kai asked in a solemn tone. During the day, when he fought with Fei Zhitu, the other party had suddenly sent him a divine sense message asking him to come to the city lord's mansion at night, a development that puzzled Yang Kai greatly. Although he did not know the reason, he could guess that it was related somehow to the recent changes in Shadow Moon Hall. If I said I want to ask you for your help, would you believe me? My help? Yang Kai frowned. What kind of help? Let's set that aside for the moment. Let me first ask you, what do you think of Shadow Moon Hall's current situation? Fei Zhitu lowered his voice and asked solemnly. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. Junior has recently been in retreat on Dragon Cave Mountain, so he isn't aware of what has been happening outside. I hope Senior can enlighten me. So, that's how it is. Fei Zhitu gently nodded. In that case, the city lord won't beat around the bush. The reason your Dragon Cave Mountain was targeted this time is actually because of the infighting going on inside Shadow Moon Hall. Regarding this, my Shadow Moon Hall has utterly wronged you. After all, you have been happily cooperating with us over the past few years, and our relationship has brought great benefits to both parties. However, your Dragon Cave Mountain still being able to remain safe and steady is mainly because of that old fart Qian Tong sheltering you. Now though, Qian Tong has encountered a little trouble and some people want to take this opportunity to deal with him. They used your grievance with the Xie family as an excuse to act against your Dragon Cave Mountain, so they could test Qian Tong's reaction. Having said this much, Fei Zhitu stared at Yang Kai for a moment, but to his surprise, he did not see any change in expression on this youth's face, prompting him to ask, "You already knew?" Yang Kai simply chuckled. "I had my speculations." Fierce. Fei Zhitu's eyes flashed with approval. Since you've already guessed that much, the rest is easier to explain. In short, Shadow Moon Hall is currently divided into two camps, one headed by Qian Tong, the other by an elder named Fengzhen. These two have different ideas and employ different methods, causing conflict between them inside the sect. Moreover, these two respectively oversee the sect's artifact refining and alchemy divisions, with the other elders and deacons fairly evenly distributed among them. These two factions have been struggling with one another for many years, but no major incidents had taken place until recently a big event broke the balance between them. Grandmaster Gu Lin's death? Yang Kai narrowed his eyes as he recalled this matter. Qian Tong and Grandmaster Gu Lin had a particularly good personal relationship, so when Grandmaster Gu Lin passed away, it was equivalent to Qian Tong losing one of his greatest supporters, inevitably causing the other faction to have some ideas. Yang Kai thought his guess was correct, but Fei Zhitu sneered and shook his head. Grandmaster Gu Lin's death was indeed part of the reason, but the real cause of this falling out was something else. Something else? Yang Kai asked curiously. Speaking of this matter, you were also involved in it, Fei Zhitu whispered. The red candle fruit piece. That? Yang Kai suddenly realized. In Shadow Moon Hall, the sect master isn't actually the strongest. The most powerful ones are that old fart Qian Tong and Fengzhen. Both of them have the highest chance to break through to the Origin King realm, but there is only a small piece of the red candle fruit and everyone wants it. Surely you can imagine how the situation developed from there, right? If that's the case, it certainly could explain the current situation. Yang Kai's expression flashed a look of understanding. 2 years ago, when the Flowing Flame Sand field opened, A red candle fruit had appeared in the third layer, and although it had ultimately been cut into several pieces by Lung Qing of Star Emperor Mountain, Wei Guchang and Dong Shenner managed to snatch one of those pieces and successfully bring it back to Shadow Moon Hall. This treasure was rumored to be able to allow an origin-returning realm master to break through to the Origin King realm. This kind of temptation was far too great, so it was not surprising that the original balance between Shadow Moon Hall's factions was broken by its appearance. In truth, that old fart Chen Tong isn't the type of person who likes fighting with others, but the significance of that red candle fruit piece is just too great. If it could really promote him to the Origin King realm, then my Shadow Moon Hall would become the first sect on Shadowed Star. Not even Star Emperor Mountain would be a match for my Shadow Moon Hall, so although this hope is slim, in the end, it is still hope. Old Chen knows this and Fengzhen naturally knows it as well, so the hostility that had been just below the surface finally broke out. The internal workings of Shadow Moon Hall can now only be described as a chaotic mess, Fei Zhitu said with some sadness. If this matter isn't handled well, at best my Shadow Moon Hall will suffer a sharp decline, and at worst it will completely collapse. Are things really so serious? Yang Kai's face changed slightly. The grievances between the elders and deacons of the two factions that Chen Tong and Fengzhen lead have been piling up for many years. Until now, they had been suppressed by the sect master, so no big trouble ever erupted. But this time, the sect master is truly helpless. In fact, if not for sect master being so old, this red candle fruit piece would have been taken by him and that would have been the end of it. But sect master couldn't bear to waste such a heaven-defying treasure, so he refused to use it. If this dispute inside the Shadow Moon Hall really turns into an all-out conflict, little brat, you understand what it means to be an egg in a quarreling nest. Yang Kai's eyes twitched. How could he not understand what Fei Zhitu wanted to say? If Shadow Moon Hall really fell apart, then Dragon Cave Mountain would also suffer disaster. After all, Dragon Cave Mountain was still within the core territory of Shadow Moon Hall, so what would happen to them if a war broke out was impossible to say. But soon, Yang Kai's expression became flat as he stared at Fei Zhitu and asked, Senior need not spin such a terrifying tale. This junior just wants to know now, which faction do you belong to? Me? Fei Zhitu raised his brow, laughing wryly a moment later as he slowly said, This city lord had grown tired of those people's infighting, so I asked the sect master to assign me the duty of overseeing Heavenly Fate City. As the master of this city, which faction do you believe I belong to? Yang Kai gently nodded and said with a smile, From Senior's words just now and the concern you showed about Elder Chen, I thought for sure you were a member of Elder Chen's faction. Bullshit. Chen Tong, that old fart? Fei Zhitu coldly snorted, seemingly wanting to continue cursing, but halfway through he swallowed his words and waved his hand in annoyance. Forget it. Long story short, I owe Chen Tong a big favor, so this time I plan on paying it back in full. What does this matter have to do with me? Yang Kai frowned. For what reason did Senior call Junior out here so late at night? Fei Zhitu stared at Yang Kai with a solemn look and said, Chen Tong ran into some trouble. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. You don't seem like an ungrateful person. Your Dragon Cave Mountain being able to develop steadily these past few years has much to do with Chen Tong's care. Do not think he hasn't looked after you. If not for him taking a commanding position here in Heavenly Fate City, your little home might have already been swallowed whole. A trivial few youngsters who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth actually occupying other people's territory and lording over it? For the time being, let us not mention Dragon Cave Mountain. City Lord Fei, tell me about Elder Chen's situation. If there is any place I can help with, I will certainly not refuse, Yang Kai said lightly. There was no need to mention out loud things that Yang Kai was already well aware of. He knew that Dragon Cave Mountain remaining so calm and steady these past few years was indeed mainly thanks to Chen Tong's shelter. But Fei Zhitu blatantly pointing out this fact was still uncomfortable to hear, causing his tone to become somewhat cold. Fei Zhitu didn't seem to mind either way and continued. What I want to tell you next is something only a few people know. This matter is of great importance, so absolutely do not let it leak out. After receiving this urge, Yang Kai nodded in understanding. Listening to Fei Zhitu's explanation, Yang Kai realized that Qian Tong had been missing for nearly half a year. Calculating the time, Qian Tong had already been gone when Yang Kai and Yang Yen set out for Colored Glass Sect. As for where he went, there were many differing opinions. Some people said that he had entered a secluded retreat to comprehend some kind of profound secret technique. Others said he went out in search of some opportunity and encountered an unexpected accident. Others still said he did not wish to be the cause of Shadow Moon Hall's collapse and had decided to go into exile. However, no matter which hypothesis, no one was able to confirm anything. At this moment, when Shadow Moon Hall was falling apart and fierce disputes were happening throughout the sect, Qian Tong's sudden disappearance was truly quite puzzling. It was precisely because he had disappeared at such a critical juncture that Feng Zhen was becoming more and more daring. Now, in Shadow Moon Hall, although there were still several influential elders who could join forces to suppress Feng Zhen, without a key person like Qian Tong to lead them, they had fallen into a disadvantage. If Qian Tong failed to return soon, the consequences would definitely be unimaginable. This time, Ma Xian Yuan and several others joining forces with the Xie family to deal with Dragon Cave Mountain was a final probe from Feng Zhen towards Qian Tong. Feng Zhen wanted to see if, when he took this opportunity to deal with Dragon Cave Mountain, it would force Qian Tong to appear. Although the result of this probe was the death of an origin-returning realm master from the Xie family, it should still be able to satisfy Feng Zhen's faction. Qian Tong not showing up from beginning to end was enough to prove that something had gone wrong. As soon as the outcome of this probe was passed back to the sect, it was almost certain that Feng Zhen's faction would begin making a big move. Where is Elder Qian now? Yang Kai asked with a frown. An ancient ruin. Fei Jitu replied in a low voice. An ancient ruin? Yang Kai's eyes lit up. Yes, but whether he's alive or dead, I don't know. Fei Jitu sighed. The last time I received news from him was half a month ago. At that time, he used this thing to pass me a message. Saying this, Fei Jitu flicked his wrist and a small white light suddenly appeared at his fingertips and flew directly to Yang Kai. Yang Kai reached out and directly grabbed the white light, holding it in his palm as he observed it. To his surprise, though, this white light turned out to be a kind of insect similar to a snow-white silkworm. It was only a couple centimeters long, and through its pure white exterior one could make out some tiny blood vessels. However, when Yang Kai swept this strange insect with his divine sense, a message suddenly sounded in his mind. Yang Kai was startled but quickly calmed down and listened quietly. The message this insect relayed was indeed left by Qian Tong, and by listening to it, Yang Kai immediately understood the other party's situation. It was just as Fei Jitu had said. Qian Tong was stranded in an ancient ruin and could not get out of it. He had been forced to let this insect come to Heavenly Fate City with his distress message to ask Fei Jitu for help. This insect is called a messenger insect. It is an exotic ancient insect whose only use is delivering messages. However, because it can ignore all forms of barriers and arrays, it is quite convenient to use. Don't be fooled by its bloated appearance either. It's quite fast, Fei Jitu explained after Yang Kai finished his investigation. Yang Kai gently nodded, and a dignified look flashed across his face as he returned the messenger insect to Fei Jitu's. Judging from what he heard just now, Qian Tong's situation was not optimistic. The message left in this messenger insect seemed to have been recorded after Qian Tong had suffered injury. So after so long it was impossible to know what state he was in. City Lord Fei, might I ask why Elder Qian would choose such a critical moment to go explore an ancient ruin? Yang Kai asked in confusion. Fei Jitu coldly snorted. How should I know what he's thinking? After a pause, though, he continued. If I had to guess, he didn't want Shadow Moon Hall's conflict to erupt into a full-blown civil war, so he was looking for a way to balance the two factions' power again in order to stabilize the current situation. You should know that he had a close personal relationship with Grandmaster Gulin before. And with the prestige and contacts of Grandmaster Gulin, it was previously possible to completely suppress Feng Zhen's faction. But now that Grandmaster Gulin has passed away, while the other side still has an origin-grade alchemist supporting them, the delicate balance has naturally disappeared. The ancient ruin old Qian went to explore was something Grandmaster Gulin had discovered, and the reason Grandmaster Gulin was able to become an origin-grade artifact refiner was also thanks to that ruin. Qian Tong going to search this ancient ruin this time was his desperate attempt to allow another person to break through their bottleneck and reach the level of origin-grade artifact refiner. Once another origin-grade artifact refiner emerges, the initiative for this situation would fall back into Qian Tong's hands. Right, I forget to tell you, Qian Tong did not go out alone. He brought with him another person, a Saint King-grade artifact refiner who can be regarded as Grandmaster Gu Lin's successor. Then Elder Qian's actions were well thought out. Yang Kai could not help saying with a hint of admiration. Well thought out. Fei Zhitu sneered disdainfully. I think he was just trying to avoid the issue. Originally, with his means and connections, as long as he could harden his heart, even without Grandmaster Gu Lin's presence he could definitely make Fengjin beg for death. But instead, that old fart chose to go around the sun to reach the moon. Why bother with those damned ancient ruins? Why not just solve the problem once and for all? Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. It seems City Lord Fei and Elder Qian have a very good relationship. The relationship between this City Lord and that old fart has no need for your comments. Fei Zhitu's face went cold. I called you this time because I want your help fishing Qian Tong out from those ancient ruins, lest he really dies inside. How this junior can assist in this matter, I hope City Lord Fei can make clear. If those ancient ruins can trap Qian Tong, with my negligible cultivation, if I were to run over and explore them, what difference with seeking death would there be? You're certainly cautious enough, but this City Lord will make his point clear, lest you not be able to feel at ease. What I am interested in is not your personal strength. You are indeed extraordinary. A third-order Saint King being able to socialize with so many origin-returning realm masters, and even receive a move from me is quite extraordinary. Even if you relied on external forces like that shield artifact and your artifact spirit, your skills cannot be discounted. But if you were to enter that ancient ruin with only this kind of strength, you would only be a burden. However, your artifact spirit is a different matter. I want to borrow its power. Yang Kai curled his lips, realizing that Fei Zhitu's purpose in calling him out here late at night was because he had his eyes on the artifact spirit. There is an ice road inside that ancient ruin which is extremely dangerous. Your artifact spirit's flames are also not ordinary. Even my blue jade bowl was unable to refine and disperse them. If this City Lord can have your artifact spirit's assistance, it will be much easier to pass through that ice road. Is that all? Yang Kai asked in surprise after he finished listening. That's all. Fei Zhitu nodded slowly. After crossing that ice road, whether breaking any kind barriers or rescuing Qian Tong, you don't need to worry about it. This City Lord will make appropriate arrangements. If not for being unable to find an appropriate fire attribute artifact to restrain the chill of that ice road, I wouldn't have delayed for so long. Yang Kai stroked his chin silently. Fei Zhitu did not urge him further, allowing Yang Kai time to think things over. This was a matter of great importance, and although Fei Zhitu said he only wanted to use the power of Yang Kai's artifact spirit to safely cross the ice road, it would still require entering an ancient ruin, so saying that there would be no risks was impossible. Even a master like Qian Tong had become trapped in that place, so Fei Zhitu could not make any guarantees. This was a life or death risk, so of course Yang Kai would need to think about it. However, Fei Zhitu was confident Yang Kai would agree. As Heavenly Fate City's City Lord, Fei Zhitu knew much about the nearby Dragon Cave Mountain and had heard enough rumors about Yang Kai to know he wasn't an ungrateful villain. Sure enough, after a while, Yang Kai raised his head and a steady look flashed across his eyes, obviously having made a decision. Noticing this, Fei Zhitu immediately stared at him. City Lord Fei, my Dragon Cave Mountain truly owes Elder Qian a great graciousness. So now that he has encountered trouble, this junior will naturally try his best to help. Hearing this, Fei Zhitu gently nodded, a trace of satisfaction appearing on his face as he secretly thought this youth had a praiseworthy sense of character. But in the next instant, Yang Kai grinned and asked, "But what benefits are there in this for me?" Benefits? Fei Zhitu was dumbfounded as he gawked towards Yang Kai and asked, "You actually want benefits?" Yang Kai smiled as he said, "Isn't City Lord Fei underestimating Junior too much? Junior has already passed the age where he acts hot-blooded and reckless with no regard for the future. City Lord Fei doesn't think I will agree to help after only hearing a few words, right? Since I must take on risks, naturally I want to obtain some benefits. Fei Jitu frowned as a trace of disappointment flashed across his face, coldly saying, "But this is about rescuing Qian Tong, not some random stranger. And so, if Elder Qian had sent me a message personally, of course, Junior would have done his utmost without asking for compensation. But the one asking for my help now is Senior Fei. Junior is not familiar with you, so naturally, I should be asking you for benefits. After all, if we successfully rescue Elder Qian, the one Elder Qian will owe a favor to is you. It will have little to do with this Junior." "What kind of sophistry is that?" Fei Jitu's face went blue as he shouted. Never had he imagined that Yang Kai would bluntly ask him for benefits. This was completely different from what he had envisioned. In Fei Jitu's opinion, his inviting Yang Kai was already giving this youth a great amount of face. If the other party didn't possess that fire attribute artifact spirit with his third-order Saint King realm cultivation, he would simply not be eligible to participate in this action. And when the time really came, how could Qian Tong not show this kid any gratitude? "This little brat is too shameless," Fei Jitu snorted angrily. "Whether or not my words are sophistry, City Lord Fei should be able to judge himself." Yang Kai replied calmly, not showing any signs of impatience. Fei Jitu glared at him for a long time, but suddenly remembering something, he wore a cunning grin and said, "If you want benefits, then I will give you benefits. Boy, you killed Xia Hong, one of the Xia family, right?" Yang Kai's face changed slightly, but he quickly said, "City Lord Fei, food can be eaten freely, but words may not be spoken randomly. What evidence do you have to prove that I killed Xia Hongwen? Don't try to play dumb with me." Fei Jitu coldly snorted. "Do you think other people don't know about what you've done?" Yang Kai frowned, feeling that the other party really was not just making baseless accusations. Quickly wearing a humble appearance, he asked, "Please enlighten me, Senior." Fei Jitu smiled deviously and said, "Your grievances with Xia Hongwen were known by many people. And when the flowing flame sand field opened, Xia Hongwen deliberately brought two Xia family Saint King realm disciples with him just to seek revenge on you. However, when the flowing flame sand field closed, none of them appeared again. So clearly they had died in the flowing flame sand field. The flowing flame sand field is filled with danger. Even if he did die inside, what does that have to do with me?" Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent as he continued to deny the charge. Shadow Moon Hall has a rather special secret technique which can be applied to a junior by their elders. When a junior falls, this secret technique will transfer itself to the one who killed them automatically. Not only does Xia Hongwen have this secret technique placed on him, Wei Guchong, Dong Xianer and all the other elite disciples of the sect do as well. I assume the city lord doesn't need to explain any further. Yes. Yang Kai's flashed an amazed expression. If Fei Jitu was not lying to him, he must have been marked by that secret technique, and if that was the case, his killing Xia Hongwen was probably not a secret. The Xia family hadn't taken action against you for two reasons. Firstly, because they feared Qian Tong, and secondly, because you rarely appeared after returning from the flowing flame sand field. The barriers and arrays protecting Dragon Cave Mountain are extremely powerful, so the Xia family masters were unable to detect whether that secret technique had been transferred to you. But you leaving Dragon Cave Mountain just once was enough to confirm you killed Xia Hongwen. Fei Jitu grinned meaningfully. As long as you can accompany the city lord on this trip, not only can I help you to disperse that stubborn secret technique, I can also promise you that in the future the Xia family will never trouble your Dragon Cave Mountain again. I can even restore your previous trade relationship with Shadow Moon Hall. So are these benefits enough? While he was talking, Yang Kai had already used his divine sense to carefully examine his body. A moment later his expression turned extremely ugly. In his body, Yang Kai discovered an extremely well-concealed foreign energy mark. This mark's energy fluctuations were very weak, and if not for him meticulously scanning every inch of his body, Yang Kai would not have noticed it. Even with Fei Jitu revealing this, Yang Kai had to check himself 3 times before he was able to discover the existence of this mark. It seemed that this Shadow Moon Hall secret technique was truly covert. "You found it." Fei Jitu looked at him in surprise. Although Yang Kai did not say anything, from the change in his expression, this point was fairly easy to determine. This secret technique was extremely stealthy, and as far as Fei Zhitu knew, the mark which was applied to Xiahong 1 was planted by Xieli. Xieli was a second-order origin returning realm cultivator, but even a master with equivalent strength may not have been able to find a trace of it. So how had this third-order Saint King youth done so? Fei Zhitu could not help admiring Yang Kai while secretly wondering if he had used some kind of powerful artifact to help him find this mark. Yang Kai did not answer his question and instead tried to wrap this weak energy mark with his demonic flames to dissolve it. However, he soon found that although this mark's energy fluctuations were extremely weak, they were also extremely difficult to refine. From the looks of it, it would take at least a few days to eliminate this mark. Now that he had found it though, Yang Kai wasn't in a hurry to remove it and pondered for a moment before turning to Fei Zhitu with a solemn expression. I can agree with half of Senior's proposal. Half. And after this matter is completed, Dragon Cave Mountain's trade relationship with Shadow Moon Hall can be restored, but the price of goods will need to be discussed again. As for Xie family, this junior only has one request. Let's hear it. Fei Zhitu narrowed his eyes at him. Shadow Moon Hall must not interfere with my and the Xie family's grievances, Yang Kai declared. Fei Zhitu raised his brow in astonishment. He had thought that Yang Kai was going to ask Shadow Moon Hall to suppress the Xie family and not allow them to seek trouble with Dragon Cave Mountain in the future. How could he have known that this little brat's courage would be so great? From the request Yang Kai made, it was obvious he wanted to personally and permanently settle things with Xie family. After understanding this point, Fei Zhitu suddenly became interested. Although the Xie family wasn't a top-level family, it still had many origin-returning realm masters, with its patriarch being a genuine second-order origin realm master. With the strength of Dragon Cave Mountain today, could it really compete with a force like this? Was this boy simply sleep-talking? Fei Zhitu didn't want to interfere in the grievances between Yang Kai and Xie family in the first place, and he was completely disinterested in what kind of bear hearts and leopard galls this boy had eaten to dare run his mouth like this. So he immediately nodded. Sounds reasonable. As long as Chen Tong can return, I can guarantee that even if you destroy the Xie family completely, Shadow Moon Hall will not raise any objections. Of course, that will depend on if you have this ability. He was not very confident about Yang Kai's chances. Yang Kai did not bother arguing with him and instead began discussing the details of the operation. After agreeing on a date and place to meet, he got up and left the city lord's mansion alone. After Yang Kai left, Fei Zhitu frowned and muttered, "Wait, why didn't that boy ask me to help him get rid of that secret technique mark? Does he have a way to remove it himself?" Thinking about it for a while, Fei Zhitu slowly shook his head, too lazy to bother with it any further. The Xie family already knew that Xie Hongwen had died at Yang Kai's hands, so it didn't really matter if this mark was removed or not. Yang Kai returned to Dragon Cave Mountain without alerting anyone. The date he agreed on with Fei Zhitu was in 3 days' time. Fei Zhitu apparently still had to make some preparations, and he had to make sure to conceal his activities, otherwise he might draw unwanted attention. Taking advantage of these 3 days, Yang Kai planned to purge the weak mark from his body. Although from what Fei Zhitu had explained, this secret technique was only used to determine the killer of an elite disciple, who knows what other kinds of effects it could have. Such a thing lingering inside his body made it impossible for Yang Kai to rest easy. Fortunately, Yang Kai's demonic flames were quite extraordinary, incomparable to the Saint Chi of ordinary cultivators. With the artifact Spirit Firebird's help, only 2 days later, Yang Kai managed to destroy the energy mark and, upon re-examining himself, he breathed a sigh of relief. Next, Yang Kai summoned Xianxia, Howen, Yang Yen, Wu Yi, and Chen Yu, carefully telling them not to go out during this time, so as not to be targeted by the Xie family's people. After seeing everyone nod, Yang Kai returned to his cave mansion to make a few preparations. In fact, there were no special preparations to make. Saint crystals would ordinarily be a must, but in addition to what Yang Kai always carried with him, Yang Yen had given him many of the crystal spheres the stone puppet had compressed and refined. Whether it was in terms of quantity or total internal energy, These spheres were far superior to high-rank Saint crystals, whether they were used for healing, restoring, or combat. Yang Yen called these Saint crystal spheres made by the stone puppet Saint crystal sources. Just before the sun rose, at the darkest time before dawn, a figure quietly snuck out from Dragon Cave Mountain and quickly disappeared. Half an hour later, several thousand kilometers north of Heavenly Fate City, this figure appeared again. It was Yang Kai. Glancing around for a moment, Yang Kai spotted the meeting place and immediately flew towards the small, nearby hill. At this moment, two other people who had arrived earlier were sitting in meditation atop this hill. Both were male and they didn't appear very old. Most surprising, however, was that both of them were just third-order Saint Kings. Yang Kai did not conceal his approach, and after landing atop the hill, the two young men opened their eyes and glanced over at him lightly. One of these two did not show any intention to speak and simply closed his eyes indifferently again. The other observed Yang Kai with interest for a moment before nodding slightly. Yang Kai nodded back, but neither side made any attempt to speak. This hill was not small, so with a few doubts in his heart, Yang Kai found an empty spot and sat down cross-legged. He heard from Fei Ji too that this operation would be very dangerous, so Yang Kai had naturally assumed there would be many origin-returning realm masters taking part. After all, Fei Ji too had made it clear that if not for the existence of the Firebird artifact spirit, even Yang Kai would not be qualified to participate in this action. Yet, as soon as he arrived at the rendezvous point, Yang Kai was greeted by two young men with cultivations equal to his own. Although he was quite curious about this, Yang Kai also understood that, since Fei Ji too had invited these two, he must have a good reason. Either these two had some kind of special ability Fei Ji too needed to borrow, or they were elites among the elite. Judging from their appearances, the former was more likely. Atop this hill, the three young men did not make a sound, and for some time only silence could be heard. Half an incense stick worth of time later, Yang Kai suddenly opened his eyes and looked towards the distance where he saw an azure streak of light rapidly approaching. Obviously, it was another cultivator. Because Fei Ji too's action this time required the utmost confidentiality, everyone had arrived here separately, something Yang Kai had anticipated. After the azure streak arrived, it flew down and landed on the hill, revealing a beautiful figure. The one who had come was a young woman with an enchanting body, beautiful face, and long raven black hair. She was an eye-catching beauty. However, this woman's cultivation was also just third-order Saint King, puzzling Yang Kai even further. Counting himself, there were now 4 third-order Saint Kings gathered here. But where was Fei Ji too? Surely he couldn't be expecting these 4 Saint Kings to rescue Qiantong. Could he? Thinking of this possibility, Yang Kai's face sank. After this young woman landed, she quickly discovered that the 3 best spots on top of the hill had already been occupied, causing her brow to furrow. Upon seeing this young woman, the man who had nodded politely to Yang Kai earlier stood up hastily and cupped his fists. So it is Sister CC. It has been many years since we last met. I trust Sister CC has been well since then. From the tone of his voice, it was apparent that he knew this young woman, and from the look on his face, it was also obvious he was interested in her. The woman named CC glanced over at this young man indifferently and said, Kai he? So you're here too. It seems City Lord Fei's vision is not very good, even inviting an array master like you on this trip. It makes me worry deeply about the future. Despite being belittled by this young woman, the man named Kai, he didn't show any trace of annoyance and continued. Actually, City Lord Fei invited my father first, but unfortunately he is currently in retreat, making it inconvenient to come out. As such, I was sent in his place. During this trip it seems Sister CC and I will need to cooperate. I hope Sister CC will grant me your instruction. Humph! The woman named CC coldly snorted, her pretty face filling with arrogance as she declared, I wouldn't dare grant you instruction. Although your Kai family's understanding of spirit arrays is not as profound as my Du family's, it has its own unique insights. Just don't become a burden this time and everything will be fine. Naturally. Kai he nodded while still smiling, as if he had no backbone at all, making the other young man present flash a look of contempt. After listening to their conversation, Yang Kai realized why Fei Ji too had invited these two third-order Saint Kings along. It turns out that they were both experts in the field of spirit arrays and came from famous families which were similarly professionals in this regard. Evidently, Fei Ji too wanted to be prepared for any situation. Du Cixi next glanced over at the indifferent man, then Yang Kai, before asking proudly, "Who are these two? Were they also invited here by City Lord Fei? How could they only have the same cultivation as us?" This young woman looking down on all other Saint Kings made Yang Kai frown and realized she was a spoiled, arrogant young lady from a big family. Kai, he smiled helplessly. "I'm not clear about these two brothers' origins. If they do not mind, why don't we all introduce ourselves? In any case, all of us will be traveling and working together, so getting to know one another will benefit our future cooperation." Compared with Du Cixi, this Kai He's demeanor should be very temperate, almost the opposite of Du Cixi. When he asked Yang Kai and the other young man about their backgrounds, he did it with a smile on his face with not even a trace of arrogance. Lian Guang, the indifferent man, apparently cherished his words like gold and only reported his name before falling silent again. Surnamed Lian. When Du Cixi and Kai He heard this name, both of their expressions changed dramatically. Both of them now looked at this Lian Guang with a hint of fear, as if the other's surname by itself was a powerful deterrent. Even Yang Kai could not help giving this Lian Guang a curious look. This was because, in the local region, the Lian family was quite famous. Even if one were to take all of Shadowed Star into account, the Lian family's reputation wasn't lower than general second-class sex, allowing even someone as ignorant and uninformed as Yang Kai to have heard of them. It could easily be imagined what kind of reputation this family had. The Lian family itself did not have very powerful masters, nor did it have many members. All in all, there were only about 100 or so Lian family members, with the strongest being just a first-order origin returning realm master. On Shadowed Star, even if there were not 1,000 such families, there would be at least 800, but only the Lian family name was widely known. The reason for this was simple. The Lian family were puppet masters. It was well known that the Lian family specialized in refining and operating puppets, so while their personal cultivations weren't too high, their combat effectiveness was far superior to others in the same realm because they could use countless puppets to assist them in battle. When a Lian family cultivator fought, it would always become a spectacular scene where up to dozens of puppets would appear. Moreover, the Lian family had several supreme puppets which were comparable to third-order origin returning realm masters in strength. The existence of these puppets alone was enough to deter many other forces. There was once a family force which far exceeded the Lian family in strength that coveted the latter's puppet techniques. This family attempted to destroy the Lian family and claim its secret techniques for themselves, but at the end of that conflict, it was the Lian family that emerged victorious and wiped out the other family. It was this war that caused the Lian family's reputation to soar and highlighted their third-order origin returning realm puppets' incredible strength. These supreme puppets killed countless enemies during that battle, causing many to covet and fear them all at once. The Lian family weren't fools, though, and understood that an ordinary man is innocent, but treasures made him guilty. After that war, the Lian family attached themselves to Shadow Moon Hall and agreed to refine some puppets for them free of charge in exchange for protection. So, after hearing this Lian Guang's self-introduction, Du Cixi and Kai He were both taken aback. The families the two of them came from weren't small or unknown and could even be considered quite famous due to their proficiency in spirit arrays, but compared to the Lian family they were still dwarfed. Yang Kai also wore a thoughtful look. Fei Ji too, bringing Du Cixi and Kai He along, must be in anticipation of needing to break through some barriers and spirit arrays in the ancient ruins, which was justifiable. But what point was there in inviting someone from the Lian family? After Lian Guang reported his name, he fell silent. Obviously, he was a naturally reticent individual. After Du Cixi and Kai He recovered from their shock, they turned to look at Yang Kai. After Yang Kai, too, reported his name, their expressions became strange. Kai He looked Yang Kai up and down for a moment before venturing a guess. "Brother Yang, you wouldn't happen to be the one who caused a scene in Heavenly Fate City a few days ago, would you?" Yang Kai chuckled and said, "If there was no other person who went and caused a fuss that day in Heavenly Fate City, it should be me." Kai He was immediately startled by Yang Kai's admission, and even Du Cc withdrew much of the arrogance on her face. Even Lian Guang opened his eyes again to take a second look at Yang Kai. Although the families of these three were not weak, none of them had the courage to go to Heavenly Fate City, kill people and burn down shops. What was even more bizarre was that after this guy ran amok and even committed murder, he emerged essentially unscathed and was even invited by Fei Jitu to participate in this operation. This surprised all three of them and made them wonder what kind of agreement Yang Kai and Fei Jitu had reached that allowed him to get off scot-free. However, the three of them knew that there were some secrets best left unknown, so they didn't try to get to the bottom of the situation. However, after learning Yang Kai's identity, he became much friendlier towards him, no longer remaining silent and even engaging him in a lively discussion. After chatting for a while, Yang Kai realized why this He's attitude had changed so dramatically. It turned out that there were many disputes between the Kai family and Xia family, and he himself had suffered a few big losses at the hands of Xia family disciples. Last time Yang Kai went to Heavenly Fate City though, he had killed a Xia family origin returning realm master. The details of the incident had spread, and many families and cultivators who had grudges against the Xia family cheered. The Kai family was, naturally, among them. Yang Kai cutting down Xia Quan was equivalent to helping them get revenge, so how could they not be happy? As a Kai family member, he naturally found Yang Kai pleasing to the eye. Du Cc, on the other hand, found a place to sit down and closed her eyes. After waiting for about half an hour or so, several figures suddenly and mysteriously appeared atop the hill, surprising the Saint Kings here apart from Yang Kai. Only Yang Kai's divine sense was powerful enough that he had noticed this group's arrival ahead of time, allowing him to remain calm and indifferent. After seeing that the one who led this group of newcomers was Fei Jitu, he and the other young cultivators breathed a sigh of relief and quickly cupped their fists in greeting. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yang Kai looked at the cultivators who had accompanied Fei Jitu here. There were three origin returning realm masters, one of whom was a middle-aged man who appeared to be about the same age as Fei Jitu and had reached the second order. The other two were an old man and an old woman who were both first-order origin returning realm cultivators. However, although these two were just first-order origin realm masters, their auras were deep and steady, very different from those who had only recently broken through to the origin realm. These two should have been immersed in the origin realm for many years and possess great strength. The appearance of these origin returning realm masters made Yang Kai feel a little relieved. It seemed that Fei Jitu was not unprepared. Moreover, with the current unstable situation, secretly gathering these origin realm helpers must have been quite difficult. After all, this operation was to rescue Qian Tong, so it would definitely have been inconvenient to requisition helpers from Shadow Moon Hall. At the same time, it was also necessary to ensure no one realized this rescue mission was taking place. It actually came as a surprise to Yang Kai that so many origin returning realm masters had been recruited. With this many masters and a third-order origin returning realm powerhouse leading this operation, security shouldn't be a problem. The only concern now was whether there were any hidden dangers inside the ancient ruin. Fei Jitu exchanged a few words with the origin realm masters he brought with him before addressing Yang Kai and the other youths. It looks like you kids have already gotten acquainted. And very good. During this trip there will be a place for each of you to contribute, so forming a mutual understanding will be of great benefit. As long as this trip is successful, this city lord will certainly write down this favor. After we return, you may tell your respective patriarchs that if they have need of my help in the future, they need only ask. He, Du Cc, and Lian Guang all heard this and showed joyful looks as they quickly thanked Fei Jitu. Good. Now that everyone is here, let's set out. Fei Jitu waved his hand, summoned an origin-grade low-rank star shuttle, boarded it, and led the way. Yang Kai thought he would introduce the three other origin returning realm masters to him and the other youths, but apparently Fei Jitu had no such intentions, so after snapping out of his daze, Yang Kai quickly summoned his own star shuttle and followed. From the chat he had with he just now, Yang Kai had learned from him that the only objective of this trip was to rescue Qian Tong from the ancient ruins, but where these ancient ruins were, Fei Jitu had not disclosed. Even now that everyone had gathered together and were currently on their way, Fei Jitu apparently still had no intention to explain. This caused Yang Kai to feel a bit annoyed, but he didn't try to ask anything and simply followed along for now. The three origin returning realm masters who came with Fei Ji Tu seemed to be very interested in Yang Kai and would use their divine sense or eyes to examine him from time to time, especially the old man. When Yang Kai looked back once, the other party actually nodded to him with a smile, showing a kind and amiable look, causing Yang Kai a great deal of confusion. He really wanted to know what kind of snake oil this old man was trying to peddle. Although the second-order origin returning realm cultivator and the old woman didn't show such obvious favor, they were clearly displaying goodwill towards Yang Kai as well. Yang Kai understood that these three people shouldn't have any ill intentions towards him, but receiving such obvious favor for no apparent reason caused him to become tense, and he immediately decided to keep his mouth shut and focus entirely on hurrying along. To Yang Kai, the fewer incidents he got caught up in the better because he had so many things to do. If not for the need to rescue Qian Tong this time, Yang Kai had planned to hole up in Dragon Cave Mountain for a long retreat to study various secret techniques. Also, since the Firebird artifact spirit woke up, the efficiency of refining the dragon bone and dragon bead had greatly increased, decreasing the amount of time it would take to finish this process from several years to just a few months. Yang Kai wanted to immediately enter retreat and use the power of the artifact refining furnace and the artifact spirit to fully refine these two treasures. The people in this group of 8 all seemed quite reticent. At the beginning, Kai He laughed and tried to interact with Du Cc, but after being rebuffed several times, he gave up trying to court favor with this arrogant young lady. After flying for 4 days straight, Fei Ji Tu arrived at a large rolling mountain range and came to a stop, landing a moment later. The remaining 7 naturally followed behind him. A moment later, the crowd stood outside this mountain range and Fei Ji Tu took out a yellowed map from his space ring before studying it carefully. "Isn't this Fallen Emperor Mountain?" Kai He wondered, asking in surprise. "Is the ancient ruin we're entering inside Fallen Emperor Mountain? That can't be, can it? How many people come to Fallen Emperor Mountain every year? Even you and I have come here a few times, but I've never heard anything about an ancient ruin. If there really is an ancient ruin here, why hasn't word of it leaked out?" Du Cc shook her head slowly. While these two were talking amongst themselves, Yang Kai was busy observing this so-called Fallen Emperor Mountain. It was his first time hearing about this mountain range and naturally the first time he had come here, so of course he knew nothing about it. Looking around, all Yang Kai could tell was that this mountain range was expansive, stretching out beyond the horizon. It was hard to tell just how vast this lush and verdant mountain range was, but the weirdest part about it was that it was completely quiet, without even the song of birds or insects in the air. Yang Kai also couldn't see any traces of beasts wandering about, confusing him greatly. "Ho ho! Is this little friend's first time coming to Fallen Emperor Mountain?" Just when Yang Kai was feeling puzzled, the old man came up to him suddenly, stroking his white beard and asking with a smile. "Yes, this is indeed Junior's first time here." Yang Kai's brow furrowed, not understanding why this old man had suddenly taken the initiative to talk to him. No wonder. This old man is Ning Xiangchan. The old man actually turned his head and introduced himself with a smile. Although this only caused Yang Kai to feel even more suspicious, he still returned the greeting politely. After all, this old man was clearly his senior. But this wasn't the end to this strange situation. The old man named Ning Xiangchan next pointed to the old lady and the middle-aged second-order origin returning realm man and introduced them to Yang Kai, both of them showing him a smile and offering some casual praise to him. Several origin returning realm masters suddenly taking the initiative to show goodwill towards Yang Kai naturally shocked Kai He and the other youths. None of them could understand what it was about Yang Kai that warranted such favorable treatment. Du Cc was particularly incensed, seemingly feeling that Yang Kai had robbed her of the limelight. Several seniors. "May I ask what is so special about this Fallen Emperor Mountain?" Yang Kai took advantage of a pause in their words to quickly change the subject. By now, Yang Kai could tell that these 3 origin realm masters probably had something they wanted to ask of him, otherwise they would never have bothered showing him goodwill. But no matter what kind of help they sought from him, it would certainly be troublesome. So Yang Kai had to make sure the conversation wasn't dominated by them. Hearing this question from him, Ning Xiangchen's expression suddenly became solemn and started by asking a question of his own. Do you know why this place is called Fallen Emperor Mountain? Xianxia frowned and pondered for a while before hesitantly asking, does it have something to do with the legendary Starry Sky Great Emperor? Xianxia nodded in approval, but before he could speak, the old lady next to him said with a smile, yes, this place is indeed related to the Starry Sky Great Emperor, because there are rumors that this is the place where he fell. Xianxia's face changed as he asked in shock, is that true? Xianxia chuckled. Whether this is true or not, no one can confirm, but the fact that there is a trace of Emperor pressure permeating this fallen Emperor mountain is well known across Shadowed Star. Emperor pressure? Xianxia frowned. You should have noticed by now that this fallen Emperor mountain is devoid of all birds and beasts. The reason for this is not because this place is unsuitable for them to live. In fact, with this place's rich aura and beautiful scenery, it is superior to the headquarters of many sects. However, there is no sect in this place, and not even any monster beasts because of the omnipresent Emperor pressure. This invisible Emperor pressure envelopes all fallen Emperor mountain, and the closer one gets to its center, the more powerful it becomes. No birds or beasts can survive for long under this Emperor pressure, which is why you can't see any here. A long time ago, Fallen Emperor Mountain was also favored by a powerful sect who wanted to set up their headquarters here, but even their third-order origin returning realm masters couldn't stay inside Fallen Emperor Mountain for long. No matter how high one's strength is, prolonged exposure to the Emperor pressure in this place will only lead to one being driven insane. The old lady followed up and explained, is that Emperor pressure so powerful? Xianxia was amazed. Don't underestimate this Emperor pressure. I also came here to cultivate many years ago, but if I hadn't withdrawn quickly at that time, I would have certainly been driven mad. The second-order origin returning realm master sternly warned. It's possible to cultivate inside this place? Xianxia's eyes lit up. Ho ho! This was actually what this old man wanted to tell little friend. The Emperor pressure in Fallen Emperor Mountain makes it impossible for any living creature to remain here for long, and the closer one gets to the center of this mountain range, the more intense the Emperor pressure will become. However, this Emperor pressure is actually quite suitable for tempering one's soul and spiritual energy, so every year, there are many cultivators who come to Fallen Emperor Mountain to take advantage of the Emperor pressure to cultivate their souls. Not only that, but this Emperor pressure also has the effect of enhancing one's ability to comprehend. Sure. This old man can see that little friend's aptitude is extraordinary, and one day you will certainly break through to the origin realm. When that time comes, little friend might as well come to Fallen Emperor Mountain to try to enhance your understanding of Sure. You should find that cultivating in this place will allow you to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Exactly. Out of all of Shadowed Star's origin returning realm masters, probably 60% or so come to Fallen Emperor Mountain to comprehend and condense their own Sure. Although no one has verified it, it appears the Sure condensed here in Fallen Emperor Mountain is better than Sure condensed in the outside world, and one's comprehension of Sure will also be higher if they comprehend it here. Little friend must not miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in the future. There's actually such a good opportunity here. Xianxia was amazed and quickly cupped his fists. Many thanks to 3 seniors for enlightening me. If the day comes when this junior breaks through to the origin realm, he will definitely come to this Fallen Emperor Mountain to condense his Sure. Although there was no need for these 3 to tell him about this, as Xianxia would definitely have heard about it from other sources, in the end, they were still showing him goodwill, so Xianxia needed to express his thanks. A minor matter. Xianxia smiled. If at the time little friend needs someone to escort him here, just let this old man know and he will certainly do his best to help. Not only did Xianxia say so, the old lady and the middle-aged second-order origin realm masters also made similar pledges, causing Xianxia's heart to clench even tighter. He felt that these 3 clearly wanted something from him, so he quickly waved his hands and declared he wouldn't dare inconvenience them so. As the 4 of them were talking, Fei Zhitu's brow slowly rose as he seemed to have gotten his bearings. After putting away the animal skin map, he beckoned to the rest of the group before setting out towards Fallen Emperor Mountain. Ho ho, little friend. Please go on ahead. This old man will bring up the rear. Right, you should try to not resist the Emperor pressure in this Fallen Emperor Mountain right away and instead feel it silently. Ning Xianxia once again kindly advised. Many thanks for your guidance, senior. Yang Kai gently nodded and, together with Kai He, Du Cixi and Lian Guang, rushed into Fallen Emperor Mountain. After the 4 Saint King Realm Juniors entered, Ning Xianxia and the 3 Origin returning Realm Masters followed after them. Inside Fallen Emperor Mountain, there was no such thing as dangerous beasts, but there were some mad cultivators that would suddenly launch indiscriminate attacks. These cultivators all came to Fallen Emperor Mountain to cultivate, but for various reasons had stayed too long inside and been driven insane by the Emperor pressure. Every year, countless cultivators came here and accidents happened quite frequently. In addition, there were some wicked cultivators who regarded this place as a good hunting ground to kill others and steal their possessions. However, with 4 Origin Realm cultivators accompanying them, Yang Kai and the other juniors weren't worried, especially with a master like Fei Ji Tu leading the way. As soon as they stepped into Fallen Emperor Mountain, Yang Kai felt an invisible force envelop his body. Under the influence of this invisible force, Yang Kai found Saint Qi circulation hindered slightly, and when he released his divine sense, he could only detect the situation within a few thousand meters of himself. Unexpectedly, under the influence of this emperor pressure, his divine sense had been suppressed to this extent. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a bit frightened. This omnipresent emperor pressure felt like there was a pair of eyes constantly staring at him, observing his every movement and giving him the impression that he was under constant surveillance. And this was just a small leftover portion of emperor pressure. If the real Starry Sky Great Emperor were here, just how terrifying would he be? Now, Yang Kai no longer doubted whether this person really existed. The 2-star Emperor tokens were relics left behind by the Starry Sky Great Emperor, while Star Emperor Mountain was rumored to have some kind of relationship with this legendary figure. The same was true of Fallen Emperor Mountain. All of these things couldn't have simply appeared out of nowhere. It was more than likely that the Starry Sky Great Emperor really existed. Facing this emperor pressure, Yang Kai instinctually wanted to resist it, but remembering the kind advice of Ning Xianxia and noticing that Kai He and the others weren't pushing their strength to protect themselves, Yang Kai also calmed down and began sensing this mysterious force. This place was still considered the outer periphery of Fallen Emperor Mountain, so the emperor pressure wasn't too strong and no harm would be done from not resisting it for a time. Following Fei Ji Tu, the group of 8 didn't encounter any other cultivators on the road. Fei Ji Tu was able to perfectly lead everyone around any cultivators who had come here to cultivate. Secrecy was vital to this expedition, so Fei Ji Tu wanted to have as little contact with others as possible. In a flash, 2 days passed by. As the group proceeded deeper and deeper into Fallen Emperor Mountain, the power of the ambient emperor pressure also grew far stronger. However, Yang Kai wasn't worried about this and instead felt quite happy about it because, after just 2 trivial days, he felt that his spiritual energy had become slightly stronger and, under the influence of this emperor pressure, his knowledge sea had become slightly purer. This was really a good place for cultivating one's soul. Yang Kai didn't need to do anything at all. Just by standing here, he could continuously obtain benefits. If one were to really cultivate their soul or soul skills here, they would certainly obtain twice the result with half the effort. It was a pity that the emperor pressure of Fallen Emperor Mountain was only suitable for soul cultivation though. Besides also helping one condense their own it had no other effects on one's strength. Otherwise this place would have become a cultivation paradise. The great forces on Shadowed Star would likely have even fought over the distribution of land in this place. After proceeding another 3 days, Yang Kai began having some slight difficulty. The reason was simple. Although the emperor pressure here could purify one's knowledge sea and improve the strength of their spiritual energy, this constant pressure would also put a burden on a cultivator's soul. This kind of burden couldn't be sustained indefinitely or it would begin damaging one's mind. Yang Kai's performance so far had been quite good as he had not needed to circulate his strength to resist the emperor pressure so far. All this time, he had been silently comprehending the mysteries contained in this emperor pressure like Ning Xianxia had advised him to and had gained much in the process. The other 3 Saint Kings, on the other hand, weren't so fortunate. As early as yesterday, the 3 of them had been forced to use their spiritual energy to resist the invasion of the emperor pressure. This alone painted a clear picture of whose soul was more powerful. This scene not only surprised the three Saint Kings, but also the Origin Realm Masters. Although Kai He and the other juniors were third-order Saint Kings like Yang Kai, two of them were proficient in spirit arrays and the other was proficient in refining and operating puppets. Both of these professions were extremely demanding on one's soul, especially the puppeteering techniques Lien Guang used. In combat, he could manipulate hundreds of puppets at once, each of which required a thread of his divine sense. In fact, the requirements for Lien Guang's divine sense were even more terrifying than studying spirit arrays. It could be said that the soul cultivation of these three youths already far exceeded the average cultivator in their own realm. But now, compared with Yang Kai, they were obviously weaker. How could this not surprise them? All of them began secretly guessing what kind of secret art Yang Kai cultivated to allow his soul to become so strong. Of course, Yang Kai was not paying any attention to such things. He simply felt that by resisting the emperor pressure, the benefits obtained would be diminished, so he freely opened his mind and body to it instead. When Du Cixi noticed this, she immediately showed a look of unwillingness. After all, since she began cultivating and studying spirit arrays, she had always had a much stronger soul than other cultivators in the same realm. Yang Kai showing off so blatantly in front of her wounded her pride. Grinding her teeth, she steeled herself and let go of her knowledge-seized defenses again. Kai he didn't notice anything wrong until he saw Du Cixi's face go pale. Quickly stepping forward to ask if she was all right though, he was rebuffed by her once more and could only smile bitterly and withdraw. Arriving at a large swamp, Fei Ji too came to a halt and wore a dignified expression. Taking out the animal skin map again to verify their position, he soon whispered, "We're almost there. All of you follow closely." Hearing this, everyone felt their spirits lift and quickly kept up with his pace. This swamp in Fallen Emperor Mountain was actually the basin of a huge mountain valley. No one knew why there was a swamp here, but because of the lingering miasma and clearly poisonous water, cultivators seldom came here. After all, cultivators that came here did so to cultivate their souls, so their first objective would be to find a comfortable place to cultivate. Who would come to this kind of place to suffer? Following behind Fei Ji too, the group traversed this swamp for some time before Fei Ji too suddenly came to a stop in front of a particularly large puddle. Here, Ning Xiangchan stepped forward, stood side by side with Fei Ji too and asked, "Yes, according to the message from old Qian, it should be right here, but revealing the entrance requires a little trick." Saying so, Fei Ji too took out a kind of bead and tossed it towards the center of the puddle. In front of everyone's eyes, when the beads fell into the puddle, it immediately became turbulent, as if something underneath it was stirring the water. Moreover, a whiff of white mist suddenly emerged from this puddle and caused the temperature in the surrounding 1,000-meter range to plummet. With a loud crackling noise, the huge puddle froze into a sheet of ice at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving behind only a dark, downward passage at its center. Yang Kai released his divine sense but was unable to explore what was at the bottom of this hole. After waiting for a while, the crackling sounds ceased and the passage completely stabilized. Fei Ji too then nodded. "Let's go. Brother Ning, you bring up the rear. I'll take these little guys down first." "Understood." Ning Xiangchun gently nodded. Fei Ji too glanced at Yang Kai and the others, but after seeing Du Cixi's pale complexion and sweat-drenched brow, a trace of displeasure appeared on his face. How could he not understand that Du Cixi had done this to herself by acting recklessly out of a petty sense of rivalry? This operation was very important, and if not for him being unable to find a true array master, he would not have invited this little girl to help in the first place. Releasing a blue halo of light, Fei Ji too wrapped Yang Kai and the other Saint Kings in his Saint Qi before immediately jumping into the passage. Yang Kai estimated that their group fell several thousand meters before they reached the ground. The sound of a flowing stream entered his ear, and with the help of the blue light around him, Yang Kai spotted an underground river nearby. Moreover, the emperor pressure which had enveloped them all this time had suddenly disappeared. "There's actually such a place underground here?" Kai he also looked around strangely, apparently never having expected that such a cave existed under Fallen Emperor Mountain. "Yeah. If the location of this ancient ruin was easy to find, it would have long been turned upside down while that old ghost wouldn't have been able to obtain anything from it. Fei Zhitu coldly snorted before shooting a sharp glare towards Du Cc. Rest here for a moment. If this happens again, you don't need to continue following us. Du Cc bit her red lips lightly and nodded. Although she was prideful and arrogant, she didn't dare rebel against Fei Zhitu. After waiting for a while, Ning Xianxia and the other Origin Realm Masters came down and the group of 8 decided to take a short rest. Yang Kai stared in one direction silently, not knowing whether it was an illusion or not that he felt some kind of ancient and desolate aura. He was unable to describe this aura in words, but he found it quite fascinating. When Fei Zhitu saw him staring in that direction, he couldn't help raising his brow, because that was the direction they needed to head next, making him wonder whether Yang Kai had discovered something. About half an hour later, after everyone had restored themselves, Fei Zhitu stood up and motioned, "Let's go." Having said that, he began following the underground river in the direction Yang Kai had originally been staring. As they traveled further, the ancient and desolate aura Yang Kai felt earlier became more and more apparent until even Kai He and the other Saint Kings were able to notice it, causing some excitement to flash across their eyes. Anything that was capable of exuding such an aura must be extremely ancient. Everyone in this group was an experienced cultivator and had been on many external excursions, so they could determine with great confidence that this place really had an ancient ruin, despite knowing it was impossible for Fei Zhitu to have deceived them. As they approached their destination, everyone couldn't help feeling excited. For this time's mission, rescuing Qian Tong was naturally the priority, but there was no reason they couldn't obtain some benefits during their exploration of these ancient ruins. The chances of finding treasure were particularly high in ruins like this one where very few, if any, people had previously come. But a moment later, when a space array appeared, everyone couldn't help feeling surprised. The desolate aura all of them had been feeling up until now was actually coming from the space array, and looking at its appearance, it was clearly somewhat different in design from the space arrays in use on Shadowed Star today. Although it shared many of the same characteristics, there were still many subtle differences. Yang Kai had also seen a number of space arrays and had even cultivated the Tao of Space, so he was immediately able to determine that this space array was a relic from many millennia ago. This being the case, it wasn't a surprise that this space array differed from the ones on Shadowed Star. After all, over many years, the space arrays on Shadowed Star would have been patched and altered numerous times. Around the base of this space array were several grooves where a number of depleted high-rank Saint crystals were inserted. Obviously, these Saint crystals had been consumed in order to activate it. Fei Zhitu picked up one of the depleted Saint crystals and examined it for a moment before nodding. That old fogey Qian should have used this space array to teleport to the ancient ruins. These Saint crystals were drained recently. Since that's the case, let's quickly go in, Ning Xianxia said anxiously. Fei Zhitu shook his head slowly though. We must certainly enter, but as for what is on the other side of this space array, we have no way of knowing. The message sent by that old Qian is too vague. Even us finding this place was in part due to luck. However, since these ancient ruins were capable of trapping him, whatever is inside them is definitely quite dangerous. You kids must not act rashly after we enter. Stick close to us at all times so that we can protect you if there is any danger. Is that understood? Kai He and the others didn't dare to refute and all quickly nodded. Seeing these 4 Saint King Realm Juniors act obediently, Fei Zhitu nodded in satisfaction. With a big wave of his hand, Fei Zhitu inserted a number of high-rank Saint crystals into the grooves at the base of the array before using his own Saint Chi to cover everyone and step onto the platform. In the next moment, the space array flashed and the group of 8 disappeared. When the 8 people appeared again, they were already in a completely different place. Immediately after firmly steadying themselves, Fei Zhitu and the other Origin Realm Masters released their divine senses to sweep their surroundings vigilantly, while they all condensed their Saint Chi in case they needed to take action. After confirming that there was no danger nearby, Fei Zhitu and the other masters relaxed and began to carefully examine their surroundings. Yang Kai also took the opportunity to observe the area, but after a quick scan, he couldn't help showing a strange look because he found that after using that space array, The place they had arrived at was actually kind of bizarre. The world energy aura here seemed quite rich compared to the outside, even higher than the current Dragon Cave mountain. Moreover, in the sky, there was blue, with white clouds and a sun shining in a seemingly boundless space. The location his group had arrived at was actually among a large group of buildings that seemed to be the ruins of an ancient sect. However, under his divine senses perception, Yang Kai found no living creatures other than the 8 from his group. This is the ancient ruin? Ning Xianxia and others couldn't help looking at each other, revealing a trace of suspicion. There's no doubt these are the ancient ruins we were looking for. Fei Zhitu replied confidently, seemingly having discovered something and pointing his finger in a certain direction. Those characters are not the ones we currently use on Shadowed Star, and haven't been widely seen for tens of thousands of years. In the direction Fei Zhitu was pointing there was a loft. This loft was quite exquisitely constructed and had a plaque hanging from the second floor that had several stylized characters written on it. What these words meant, however, was unknown to anyone present. In addition, there were some other buildings that also had plaques engraved with unreadable words. It's really an ancient ruin, and one that is so well preserved, Ning Xianxia said excitedly, his old face suddenly looking a bit ruddy. The old lady and the second-order origin returning realm cultivator also wore inspired looks. It wasn't like other ancient ruins hadn't been discovered on Shadowed Star, but none of them were so complete. An intact ruin meant that no one had searched through them for treasures, so anything of value was likely still here. As long as they successfully rescued Qian Tong, there would be a lot of time to explore this place. Thinking this, the several origin returning realm masters suddenly felt far more enthusiastic. Finding old Qian is our first priority. As for these ruins, it won't be too late to explore them after. Fei Zhitu understood his priorities and swiftly issued this order, to which everyone else nodded in agreement. After all, he was the one with the greatest strength here, and Ning Xianxia and the other origin realm cultivators had close friendships with him, so naturally, none of them would try to argue at this point. Immediately, Fei Zhitu began looking around for marks left by Qian Tong. Fortunately, Qian Tong had acted cautiously, and after entering these ancient ruins he had left markers along the path he traveled. Otherwise Fei Zhitu wouldn't even know where to begin looking for him. After a short time, Fei Zhitu found the right direction and began leading the way. Everyone followed after him, but glancing at the buildings around them they couldn't help letting out some sighs. If they weren't in a rush to rescue Qian Tong, they would have all gone to search through these buildings. With so many intact structures around, finding something valuable was all but guaranteed. But now they could only try to ignore this urge to explore. Unexpectedly, after about a stick of incense worth of time, the group of 8 remained perfectly safe, as if there was no danger in this ancient ruin at all. However, this only made everyone's expression grow more dignified. Suddenly, a strange medicinal fragrance reached the tip of everyone's nose, and all 8 of them couldn't help turning their heads in a certain direction as a sense of comfort and enlightenment washed over them. This is... Ning Xianxia's eyes widened as he pointed forward. The medicinal fragrance is coming from there. Fei Zhitu's expression also brightened, and he accelerated the group's pace. Only a valuable treasure would be able to produce such a rich medicinal fragrance, so naturally, he wanted to see what the source was. Soon after, the group of 8 arrived in front of a flower bed where a number of exotic flowers and grasses. Although most of these had substantial effects, only the half-meter-tall purple grass stalk in the very center of the garden, which stood straight like a sword, was worthy of their attention. The fragrance everyone smelled before was being exuded by this purple grass. Sword soul grass. And it's purple! Ning Xianxia exclaimed, staring hotly at this purple grass. Not just him though, even Fei Zhitu couldn't hide his excitement. Sword soul grass was the primary ingredient in the sword soul pill, which was the most suitable auxiliary pill for cultivators who cultivated swordsmanship. Consuming a sword soul pill would increase a cultivator's ability to grasp and control the Tao of swords and allow them to display greater strength when using sword-type divine abilities. The sword soul grass itself was an origin-grade mid-rank spirit herb, so even taking all of Shadowed Star into consideration, it was incredibly rare. When mature, A sword soulgrass would have a pale blue color, but as its medicinal age increased, its color would also slowly deepen. At present, this sword soulgrass that had turned purple must have a medicinal age exceeding 10,000 years, a rare and precious treasure. If one were to use this sword soulgrass to refine a pill and then let a cultivator who cultivated the Tao of Swords consume it, the benefits that cultivator obtained would be difficult to estimate. This spirit grass was of incredible value. What's more, it was incredibly useful for the origin returning realm masters here, including Feiji Tuesday. Although no one here took the Tao of Swords as their primary cultivation path, all of them had more or less dabbled in it and mastered some martial skills or divine abilities related to swords. As a result, all of them naturally coveted this sword soulgrass greatly. Even if none of them could really use it, selling it would result in massive profits. Brother Fei. Ning Xiangchun turned his head to look at Feiji too. Although this treasure was incredibly precious, it wasn't enough to destroy the friendship between these people. On top of that, they had just entered this ancient ruin and had already found such a thing, so if they continued searching, wouldn't they be able to find even more good things? As such, Ning Xiangchen's first response was to ask Feiji Tu's opinion on how to deal with this sword soulgrass. While they couldn't go and explore the surrounding buildings for treasures for fear of complications, if a treasure were to appear right in front of them, there was no reason to simply ignore it. If several friends are willing to trust this Fei, I will collect this sword soulgrass for now, and after we exit, everyone can discuss how to assign it, Feiji Tu declared. I have no objections. The old lady immediately expressed her support. We trust City Lord Fei. I have no objections. The second order origin returning realm cultivator also nodded in agreement, and the remaining Ning Xiangchun naturally wasn't going to disagree. Seeing that everyone had reached an agreement, Feiji Tu quickly took out a small jade shovel and walked over to the sword soulgrass, seemingly intent on digging it up completely. Brother Yang, why do you look so serious? He suddenly approached Yang Kai and asked with concern after accidentally having noticed Yang Kai's deeply furrowed brow. Yang Kai turned a deaf ear to his question as he frowned even deeper, but in the next instant a look of understanding flashed across his face and he quickly shouted, No, this isn't a sword soulgrass, City Lord Fei. Stop! He was taken aback by his sudden shout and quickly looked over towards Feiji Tu. But Yang Kai's words came out a moment too late as the jade shovel in Feiji Tu's hand had already dug into the soil of the flower bed. When Feiji Tu's jade shovel hit the soil of the flower bed where the sword soulgrass was planted, a white flash of light suddenly burst from it and an abnormal energy fluctuation filled the air at the same time. Feiji Tu's face changed dramatically as he hurriedly withdrew. The old lady and old man along with the second-order origin returning realm master also pushed their Saint Chi rapidly to protect the 4 Saint King realm juniors. The sword soulgrass, which originally looked like a straight purple sword, suddenly distorted and in the blink of an eye disappeared. Replacing it was a dazzling halo of light that rapidly spread out and then transformed into a thick cloud bank which enveloped the group of 8. Within just a breath, the surrounding environment had undergone a tremendous change. Looking around, there were no more lofts or buildings, no exotic flowers and no sword soulgrass, only an endless sky filled with strange clouds. The place where everyone was standing now appeared to be inside a gathering of multicolored clouds of all shapes and sizes, with nothing else visible for as far as the eye could see. A spirit array. Feiji Tu's face went black. By now it was obvious that the sword soulgrass everyone had been coveting a moment ago was just a trap. Once someone tried to pick the sword soulgrass, the spirit array would appear immediately and surround the would-be thieves. However, this spirit array was incredibly well concealed. Among the 8 cultivators present, only Yang Kai was able to notice something wrong and shout a last-minute warning. Unfortunately, his warning came too late. Thinking of this, Feiji Tu glanced over at Yang Kai curiously, wondering how he had noticed a flaw in this trap when none of the 4 origin returning realm masters had. Yang Kai naturally understood what Feiji Tu was thinking and proactively explained. Junior has some slight knowledge of alchemy. Since the sword soulgrass just now was purple, its medicinal age must be extremely high, but such a sword soulgrass should give off a slightly pungent fragrance that would make one feel as if they were being pricked by invisible sword blades. Fei Zhitu was startled, but didn't dwell on the subject further. Now that the trap had been sprung and they had been surrounded by this spirit array, figuring out why wasn't the immediate priority. Turning to Kai He and Du Cc, he asked, "You two are skilled in spirit arrays. Do you have any idea what this one is?" Hearing this, Du Cc and Kai He began observing their surroundings, and after a while, Du Cc's pretty face became gloomy as she reported, "If Junior is not mistaken, this should be a type of lost, ancient spirit array called the spectral cloud array." Junior concurs. Kai He nodded in agreement with Du Cc's conjecture. Spectral cloud array? Fei Zhitu glanced at the other three origin returning realm masters, but seeing their blank faces it was apparent none of them had heard of this spirit array before. So he turned back to the youths and asked, "Is this array difficult to crack? What kind of power does it have?" Du Cc smiled bitterly. Setting aside cracking it for the moment, Junior should explain about this array's characteristics first. "Do you all see the clouds surrounding us? Naturally, these clouds don't seem to be illusions or a form of energy, truly peculiar." Ning Xianxia nodded. "Because they are real clouds," Du Cc declared. "What?" Fei Zhitu and all the others couldn't help showing looks of shock as they asked, "You mean to say these are real clouds?" Yes, the reason why the spectral cloud array became a lost spirit array was because of the requirement of refining the clouds in the sky. Currently, even the most powerful cultivators on Shadowed Star lack such ability, so naturally it became impossible to arrange this spirit array. Refine the clouds in the sky. Fei Zhitu and all the others present were dumbfounded by Du Cc's statement, finding it somewhat unbelievable. What kind of shocking means would a cultivator need to even be capable of refining the clouds in the sky? Du Cc turned a blind eye to their stunned expressions and continued to explain. Refining the clouds is just the first step. Next, different energy attributes need to be fused with these clouds, along with the souls of powerful monster beasts, transforming the originally inanimate clouds into a kind of life form. All the clouds in a spectral cloud array can transform into cloud beasts. The monster beast souls extracted by the one who arranged this array can vary greatly in strength, creating cloud beasts over different strengths, but regardless of what kind of strength they possess, these cloud beasts are extremely difficult to kill. "You mean all these things will transform?" Fei Zhitu glanced around at the countless different colored clouds with an extremely ugly expression. There was no need for Du Cc to answer though, because before Fei Zhitu could even finish his question, a dozen or so of the scattered clouds began to wriggle and twist, transforming into different forms resembling monster beasts in the next moment. However, it was apparent that these so-called cloud beasts didn't have a true physical body and were simply a combination of the cloud they were formed from and a large amount of pure attribute energy, making them even stronger than ordinary monster beasts. Everyone's divine sense swept through the bodies of these cloud beasts nervously, but after feeling the energy fluctuations emitted by them, Du Cc breathed a sigh of relief and a bit of color returned to her pretty face as she said, "It seems our luck isn't too bad. There are only ninth-order cloud beasts here." Her thinking they were fortunate wasn't without reason. Since this spirit array was from ancient times, who could tell how powerful the master who arranged it was? If there was even one 10th-order cloud beasts here, all of them would certainly die here. Even if they had heaven-shaking methods, there was no way Fei Zhitu and the other Origin Realm Masters here could fight against a 10th-order monster beast, as it would be the same as trying to fight an Origin King. Just having stepped into this ancient ruin and already falling into such a spirit array caused everyone to feel great pressure, and naturally none of them dared to take the situation lightly. Fei Zhitu quickly shouted, "Du girl and Kai boy, focus on cracking this array. Leave these cloud beasts to us." "Yes." Kai He and Du Cc nodded hurriedly, and knowing that the time for them to display their talents, they immediately became spirited. Fei Zhitu glanced over at Yang Kai and the reticent Lian Guang next. "You two take care of yourselves. Don't accidentally fall here." Yang Kai nodded lightly while Lian Guang said nothing however. He did take out a number of palm-sized puppets from his space ring, all exquisitely refined. With a wave of his hand, he scattered them around. Immediately after, Lian Guang began pouring his Saint Qi into each of these puppets. In the next moment, these puppets rapidly grew bigger, causing Yang Kai's eyes to flash in surprise and interest. This was the first time he had witnessed someone using puppet techniques. Lian Guang was a third-order Saint King realm cultivator, but all of the puppets he was operating gave off energy fluctuations equivalent to first or second-order Saint Kings. There were 6 puppets in total, all of them different shapes and sizes. The smallest one looked like a small snake, while the biggest was actually the size of a house. But all of them had an imposing aura to them. Yang Kai immediately understood the reason why the Lian family was so famous, and clearly deserving of their reputation. With these puppets, Lian Guang was invincible among cultivators in the same realm, and even if he were to encounter an origin realm master, he would still have an opportunity to escape. Nearby, Fei Jitu summoned his blue jade bowl and expanded it to over 10 meters in diameter. With a wave of his hand, Fei Jitu sent out his blue jade bowl towards one of the menacing cloud beasts, and in the next instant, a flash of blue light erupted. Before this 9th-order cloud beast could even launch a single attack, it was engulfed by this blue light and, despite struggling and howling fiercely, it was dragged into and captured by the blue jade bowl. Seeing this, Yang Kai realized he had greatly underestimated the power of this blue jade bowl. At the same time, Ning Xiangchan snorted and a cane-like artifact appeared in his hand. With a flick of his wrist, this cane transformed into a black streak that struck towards a nearby cloud beast, while the old lady sent out a large net-like artifact that emitted a dazzling 3-colored light that not only captured another cloud beast but also began viciously cutting into it. When the origin realm masters of this group all suddenly took action, the surrounding cloud beasts seemingly became enraged and bestial roars rang out. Besides the 9th-order cloud beast which had been swallowed by the blue jade bowl, all the others leapt forward with their great maws opening wide. Before any of them even arrived, beams of energy shot out from their mouths, raining down on the group with imposing might. This scene caused Fei Jitu and the other Origin Realm Masters' expressions to grow even more dignified. Summoning back the blue jade bowl, Fei Jitu used it to create a light shield around Kai He and Du Cc to protect them. Brother 1, take care of Du Girl and Kai Boy. Fei Jitu left behind his blue jade bowl, while shouting to the middle-aged second-order Origin Realm man, before he pushed his Saint Chi and shot forward to meet the approaching cloud beasts. Ning Xiangchun followed with his cane artifact along with the old woman and her net artifact, the 3 of them intercepting 8 of the attacking cloud beasts. The middle-aged man surnamed when remained where he was, but seeing Du Cc and Kai He standing there stunned, he shouted, "Haven't you begun yet?" "Oh!" Hearing this scolding, Kai He and Du Cc recovered and quickly took out some specialized tools from their space rings and injected their Saint Chi before spreading them around. Yang Kai glanced over at them and seeing them begin to study the spectral cloud array, he calmed down. He had been together with Yang Yen for a long time now and naturally knew that the tools these two had scattered a moment ago were called bases and plates. These things were used not only to arrange spirit arrays but were also essential when one was trying to crack them. Moreover, with these tools, even if one wasn't proficient in arranging spirit arrays, they could still set up some simple ones. Before, Yang Kai had wanted to ask Yang Yen to refine a couple powerful sets of these tools for him, but unfortunately he had not found the opportunity or time to ask her. It seemed that after returning from this mission, he would need to prioritize asking her for these tools. Although using such tools to arrange a spirit array wouldn't result in as powerful a spirit array as when one follows an orthodox methodology, as long as the tools themselves weren't damaged, they could be reused without limit. For someone like Yang Kai who frequently encountered crisis when out exploring the world, such tools would undoubtedly be beneficial to have on him.